to the October 9th, 2025 Planning Commission hearing. I will call the hearing to order at 1 p.m. Ms. Carmen, can we please have roll call?
Thank you, Vice Chair Boss. I will begin with Vice Chair Boss.
Present.
Commissioner Barnwell.
Here.
Commissioner Balke.
Here.
Commissioner DeLucia.
Here.
And Commissioner Wiscombe.
Here.
We have quorum. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's get started with preliminary matters, requests for continuances, withdrawals, postponements, or ex-agenda items. Ms. Arciniega, do we have any?
Thank you, Vice Chair Boss. We do have one continuance. The item previously scheduled for 816 Cacique Street, which is the path update, is being continued to November 6th. So you will see it on that agenda.
Thank you. And do we have any announcements or appeals?
Thank you, Vice Chair Boss. No, we do not.
Okay. All right, thank you. We're now on to item C, review, consideration, and action on the following draft Planning Commission minutes and resolutions. I'd like for us to take the items separately as they cover two meeting dates. So first is August 14th, 2025 Planning Commission meeting minutes. Are there any Planning Commissioner comments on the minutes? Are there any public speaker comments for the August 14th minutes?
I do not have any speaker slips for comment for that.
Okay. Then can I get a motion to approve the August 14th Planning Commission minutes?
I'll move the minutes. Second.
Great. Motion and a second. Ms. Carmen, can we please have a roll call vote?
Thank you, Vice Chair Boss. I will begin with Commissioner Balke.
Yes.
Commissioner DeLucia.
Yes.
Commissioner Barnwell.
Yes.
Commissioner Wiscombe.
Yes.
And Vice Chair Boss.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you. And second, the August 21st, 2025 Planning Commission minutes, as well as Planning Commission Resolution number 825 for 3405, 3407, and 3425 Sea Ledge Lane, and 3357 Cliff Drive, and Planning Commission Resolution 925 for 3429 Sea Ledge Lane. Are there any Planning Commissioner comments on the minutes or the resolutions? No. Is there any public comment on this set of minutes or resolutions?
I do not have any speaker slips for public comment.
All right. Can I get a motion to approve the August 21st minutes and accompanying resolutions?
I'll move so.
And a second. All right. We have a motion and a second. Ms. Carmen, can we please have a roll call vote?
Thank you. I'll begin with Commissioner Balke.
Yes.
Commissioner DeLucia.
Yes.
Commissioner Barnwell.
Yes.
Commissioner Wiscombe.
Yes.
And Vice Chair Boss.
Abstain. I was absent.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you. And that takes us to item D, comments from members of the public pertaining to items that are not on today's agenda. Due to time constraints, each person is limited to 2 minutes. Ms. Carmen, do we have anyone in person or remote that would like to give public comment?
Thank you, Vice Chair Boss. At this time, I do not have any speaker slips for in-person public comment, for general public comment. If anyone in the room would like to speak under general, you can approach the podium at this time. And I would like to remind the audience that if anyone would like to speak under any items on today's agenda, that you can fill out a speaker slip at the back of the room, and you can bring one up to me, and I will call you during that item. But if I'm not seeing any movement towards the podium, I will move to virtual participation. If anyone online would like to speak under general, you can raise your hand at this time. But I am not seeing any raised hands, so I will acknowledge that we received 2 submissions from both Annalisa Hoods and Steve Johnson as written correspondence, and give it back to you.
Thank you. We'll now close general public comment, and we'll move on to item 3, consent item 102 West De La Guerra Street. The action under the jurisdiction of the Planning Commission at this hearing is to approve revised Planning Commission Resolution 225, approved by the Planning Commission on May 15th, 2025, to correct a clerical error. Are there any Planning Commissioner comments on this item? Okay. Any public speaker comments on this item?
Thank you, Vice Chair Boss. At this time, I do not have any speaker slips for public comment for this item. I will move to virtual participation if anyone would like to speak on this item. I'm not seeing any raised hands, and we did not receive any written correspondence, so I'll give it back to you.
Thank you. Then can I get a motion to approve the revised Planning Commissioner Resolution 225?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Great. And a roll call vote, please.
Thank you. I'll begin with Commissioner Wiscombe.
Yes.
Commissioner Barnwell.
Yes.
Commissioner Balke.
Yes.
Commissioner DeLucia.
Yes.
And Vice Chair Boss. Boss.
Yes, thank you. We will now move on to item 4, concept review for 701 State Street et al. And 914 Chapala Street, Paseo Nuevo, Lot 2. Planning Commission conceptual review is required because the project site is greater than 15,000 square feet, is proposed under the AUD incentive program priority housing overlay, and the project as currently proposed does not require another discretionary approval by the Planning Commission. The purpose of the hearing today is for the Planning Commission to review the proposed conceptual project and provide the applicant, staff, and Historic Landmarks Commission with comments regarding the design, overall project improvements, and consistency with the city's general plan. And the comments on today's project will also be considered by City Council in its consideration of entering into a disposition and development agreement for the redevelopment. So we'll move now to staff presentation. I know we have a number of staff here to provide a presentation, so please introduce yourselves throughout. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Chair Boss and members of the Planning Commission. For those, I think I've met most of you, Kelly McAdoo, City Administrator, here today with a very large team to present the concept review of the Paseo Nuevo redevelopment project. And this is, as you may know, a unique project in that the city is a partner in bringing this project forward as the landowner underneath the ground lease for the Paseo Nuevo Mall. We have a team here, Patsy Price, the project planner, Tess Harris, State Street Master Planner, our city attorney, Sarah Connect, Assistant City Attorney, Dan Henschke, and then from the AB and development team, we have Graham Lyons, Duncan Patterson, and Seth Pantalone here to answer questions. So I'm going to kick it off and just do some context setting, and then Ms. Price is going to go through the elements of the project that are under the purview of the Planning Commission today for conceptual review, and then we're happy to answer questions. So just to take a step back, you know, this is a little, as I said, a little bit unique, and there is we are pursuing what's called a disposition and development agreement, and that is basically a separate document that documents the transaction of the land transfer that we're proposing from the city to the developer to enable this project to move forward. And that is something that it's not like your traditional development agreement. And just to sort of clarify, it is governed by a different set of state laws, and it is not the traditional development agreement the Planning Commission is sort of used to reviewing. And I think one of the big differences is that the disposition and development agreement extinguishes once the land transfer has happened, versus a development agreement which continues to run with the land and governs sort of how the land has been changed in order to accommodate a development. So a little bit of a difference, and I will say that we have been working on this project with the AB team for over 3 years. Obviously, I've only been here a year or so, and so jumped right in when I came on board. And the negotiations around the terms of the disposition and development agreement have actually gone to council 3 separate times for approval. And now we're getting into the actual design and land use issues related to the project. So that's where kind of we are in the steps in the process. But the council has been involved in the conversation around the terms of the disposition and development agreement, which again, I said is separate from what you would traditionally see as a development agreement for land use. So this is the vicinity map that we're discussing today. Mainly, we'll be discussing the project development on the Macy's site. There's the parcels outlined, and I guess it's a little bit of a yellow outline there. The retail shops, and then municipal parking lot number 2, which is at the top of the screen. So here's just an overall project description summary. The demolition of the Macy's building, which is 135,000 square feet. There would be the development of 233 residential rental units over parking lot number 1 on that space. A new 20,000 square foot retail space at State and Ortega. We would add 28 parking spaces to parking lot 1 for that new retail space. And then in order to accommodate the development of 80 units of income restricted affordable housing on lot 2, there would be a partial demolition of that parking structure, which would eliminate 186 parking spaces there. So a little bit more of the background. I gave a little bit of this, but the property was originally acquired by the redevelopment agency in 1987 through 1989. The city and the redevelopment agency assembled land on the city surface parking lot number 1 and De La Guerra Street. And then other land was acquired from private property owners along the east sides of the 700 and 800 blocks of State Street. The property was acquired for the redevelopment of a 400,000 square foot open air retail shopping center. So obviously Paseo Nuevo is a key anchor for the city center district of State Street. And being able to convert the vacant and functionally obsolete retail buildings into housing will bring residents to downtown. And this redevelopment does send a strong market signal that to other developers who may be considering investing in State Street. So the Macy's building and the mall shops are controlled by a subsidiary of Alliance Bernstein, and Alliance Bernstein is a global investment management firm. Basically, they are a finance lender, and you can see their experience and background in asset management, and they have assembled a development team that has been helping with this redevelopment process. And we have Arcturus Group, the Georgetown Company, Gensler and AB Design Studio as our architects, and Mullen and Hensel as legal counsel. Sorry. Thinking I'm going to sneeze, but it's not coming out. I apologize. So what makes this project unique, and I had talked about this a little at the start. We initially, the city's redevelopment agency initiated 75-year ground leases for the mall and the inline shops that were there at Paseo Nuevo in 1989. In 2011, when the redevelopment agency was dissolved by the state of California, those leases were then transferred to the city. And so the city now owns the parcels underneath that land as opposed to the redevelopment agency. And this is important because the city's charter only allows for 50-year leases. So if the city had originally developed these parcels instead of the redevelopment agency, there would have only been a 50-year lease and not a 75-year lease. So when that transfer back to the city happened, those leases had to be converted and chopped, sort of cut off at that 50-year time limit. So what that means is there's only 40 years left on those leases. And so although we own the land under the mall, we do not own any of the improvements. There is a ground lease, and so all of the ownership rights for the buildings, the facilities, that is all now owned by AB. The uses in the mall, they are, and the parking between lots 1, 2, and 10 are all controlled through a reciprocal easement agreement. The city is a party to that, as is AB, and then the shop-off who owns the Nordstrom building. We're all 3 parties to that reciprocal easement agreement. So AB became the mall's owner a couple of years back, several years back. They had provided a loan to the prior owner of the mall to provide that owner with the opportunity to redevelop the retail spaces at the mall. That borrower defaulted, and so AB took over the ground leases at that point. And so instead of selling the property as is or trying to market it, the AB team decided to work in partnership with the city and to try to work on a project that would benefit the community and helpfully get them a return on that defaulted loan that they initially made. So here's just an overview of the current ground lease interests. So you'll see the red outlined. That is what is owned by Alliance Bernstein currently. It's the former Macy's building and the shop spaces along the mall. Nordstrom, as I mentioned, is a separate ground lease that's held by an entity named Shop-Off. And then parking lots 1, 2, and 10, which is 10 is down at the bottom of the screen. Those were all built specifically to serve the mall, and they are controlled by the reciprocal easement agreement. And so I think I'm going to turn that over to Ms. Price now to talk through the hearing purpose and the overview of the project.
Good afternoon, Vice Chair, members of the Commission. As Vice Chair announced in the introduction, we are here today for an AUD concept review. While there's a lot of other background related to this project, this follows the normal path for an AUD concept review prescribed by the municipal code. In this case, because the site is over 15,000 square feet, it is on a priority housing overlay site, and the project as proposed does not require another review by the Planning Commission. It's coming to you today for concept review at this stage. The municipal code specifies that the Planning Commission shall provide comment and recommendation by majority vote regarding the proposed design and improvements of the project and the project's consistency with the city's general plan. The Planning Commission's comments and recommendations are intended for use by the applicable design review body, in this case, Historic Landmarks Commission, in their deliberations. And also in this case, the Planning Commission's comments will be forwarded to the City Council in their consideration of the disposition and development agreement. So here's the project statistics. Currently, there are no residential units on the site, and the project proposes 233 market rate residential units that would go in the location of the current or the former Macy's building, and 80 affordable price restricted units that would go on a portion of City Parking Lot 2. Current commercial floor area, excluding the Nordstrom's building, is 240,000 square feet. That would be reduced by approximately 115,000 square feet to 125,000 square feet. Community uses, including the art museum and the theater, would remain. Parking is proposed to change. Currently, there are 572 spaces in parking lot 1, which underlies the Macy's building and the inline shops, as well as the Nordstrom building. There would be an increase of approximately 28 spaces in this lot to 600 total spaces, and those spaces would be allocated slightly differently than they are now. 320 units would remain for the retail uses. 47 are proposed to be allocated to the new 20,000 square foot retail market space on the corner of State and Ortega, and 233 spaces are proposed to be allocated to the market rate residential units. At Lot 2, as Ms. McAdoo indicated, currently there are 569 parking spaces. 186 spaces would be removed in order to accommodate the new 80-unit building, and that would result in a remainder of 383 spaces in the reconfigured Lot 2 parking structure. Currently, there's no residential units, so no residential parking. There is one parking space per market rate unit proposed, as I said, for this project. Building height of the Macy's structure is currently approximately 66 feet, and the applicant is proposing a 75-foot maximum height at the Macy's site and 70 feet at the Lot 2 site, and we'll get into the details of that in a moment. Finally, residential density is proposed to be 56 units per acre. Staff has conducted a municipal code and zoning ordinance consistency analysis. So the residential density for this site, the site is designated for commercial high-density residential and has a priority housing overlay that allows 37 to 63 units per acre. As I said, the proposed project is 56 units per acre, and that includes both the market rate and the affordable units. This proposal would allow for potential future development on the inline portion of the mall over or in place of those existing shops. The project is being proposed under both the average unit density program that the city has, as well as state density bonus program. So under our AUD program, the project is required to provide 10% units at affordable to moderate income residents. Under state density bonus, they're required to provide either 10% low income or 5% very low income units. That would equate to 24 units. The State Housing and Community Development Department has indicated that applicants can count their local inclusionary requirement. They can count the state density bonus units toward meeting that local inclusionary requirement. So in this case, the applicant would be required to provide 24 low-income units to meet both of those requirements. The proposal is for 80 affordable units. Getting back to the height, the maximum height allowed by the zoning ordinance in the central business district is 48 feet. However, there is a 60-foot allowance for community benefit housing. Rental housing at this site is a community benefit housing use. The applicant, as I said, is using the state density bonus law, which allows waivers of certain development standards. And so the proposal includes a request for a waiver of that 60-foot height standard to allow up to 75 feet at the Macy's site and 70 feet at the Lot 2 site. In terms of parking, this project site is located in a 100% zone of benefit in our downtown business district, and is also subject to AB 2097, which requires that, so both of those combined require that no spaces are required on site for proposed residential or non-residential uses. Our code also specifies that the maximum allowed spaces for residential uses would be 1 space per unit. As I indicated before, the project is proposing 233 parking spaces in Lot 1 be allocated toward the market rate units. In terms of bicycle parking, 1 covered and secured space is required for all residential units, both affordable and market rate. Also, the project would be required to ensure that there is compliant bicycle parking for existing and proposed non-residential uses on the whole of the development site. Now, getting into general plan consistency, your staff report included attachment D, which had a complete list of potentially applicable general plan policies. I'm going to summarize some of those here. In the land use element, it calls for this project site located in the downtown neighborhood to have the primary land use of commercial and residential, and it's designated for the highest densities in the city. The policies also encourage workforce and affordable housing within 1/4 mile of transit and commercial services, encourages compact, vibrant, and walkable spaces, as well as bicycling and to reduce the need for residential parking. It encourages residential development in commercial zones to include affordable housing, and calls for preserving and enhancing a sense of place and opportunities for healthy living and accessibility while reducing the city's carbon footprint. Similarly, the housing element encourages infill development near transit and jobs, particularly on redevelopment sites. Calls for continuing to encourage small rental housing units close to transit and within walking and biking distance of commerce and recreation. It also calls for prioritizing deed-restricted affordable housing and pursuing partnerships with nonprofit developers to develop housing on city-owned sites. The circulation element calls for integrating circulation element policies in land use decisions, encouraging projects that combine and locate residential near employment services and along major transit corridors. Policies also call for promoting and facilitating housing that decreases the need for parking through an increased population that lives, works, and shops downtown, and encourages high-quality pedestrian and bicycle infrastructure in projects, as well as managing the downtown public parking supply to support economic vitality in the city. So again, we're here today for a pre-application review. This is the 4th step in this pre-application review process for this project. The staff's land development team reviewed the project and provided the applicant with a letter identifying applicable policies, issues for consideration as they proceed with defining the details of the project. The project also went to the Housing Authority on September 10th, 2025, and received an update from Ms. McAdoo. The Housing Authority provided comments on the project and also authorized the executive director to proceed with exploring the feasibility of the project and commencing negotiations with the city and the applicant to be involved in the development of the 80-unit affordable portion of the project on Lot 2. The Historic Landmarks Commission reviewed the project on September 24th, and there was draft minutes included in your packet, and I just wanted to note that those minutes were adopted yesterday at the HLC's meeting, and they were slightly revised. We emailed you with an update of the approved minutes, and I have them summarized here. They're also available online for the public. So the commission noted that they understand the constraints, challenges, and importance of the project. They asked the applicant to continue to develop the details for the Lot 2 affordable housing to ensure equal dignity and character of the design, also appropriate to the site, as it relates to the market rate units. At this point, the details of the design for the Lot 2 have not been fully developed. The HLC expressed concern for the massing and size. While acknowledging the need for housing and downtown revitalization, they noted that more work is needed for compatibility findings. They asked the applicant to study shifting actual or apparent massing away from areas most visible to the public, so the project appears more like a 5- and 6-story building or development as opposed to a 6- and 7-story development. They also asked for more poetry to help the project meet the El Pueblo Viejo design standards, and said that the building should read more as a village or collection of buildings rather than 1 or 2 large structures. They said that it was essential to incorporate a paseo around mid-block on Ortega to be consistent with the paseo program, and asked the applicant to study integrating arcades and other public benefit design elements, especially on primary streets, as well as continuing to consider the flow of the public through the property. So for next steps, again, we're here today for the Planning Commission concept review, requesting that the Planning Commission provide comments and recommendation by majority vote on the proposed design and improvement of the project and the project's consistency with the city's general plan. Following this hearing, staff will continue to work with the Housing Authority to determine the Lot 2 affordable housing development potential and the terms of the disposition and development agreement. City Council is expected to consider the DDA by the end of this year. And again, the Planning Commission and the HLC's minutes will be provided to them for consideration in that process. Finally, if the DDA is approved, we anticipate that a formal planning application for the project would be submitted and review would begin in late 2025 or spring 2026. And this project would be subject to design review only by the Historic Landmarks Commission. I just wanted to add that there are several opportunities for more information regarding the project and for the public to provide additional input before this goes back to the City Council. There are 2 public outreach meetings scheduled for October 15th from 6 to 7:30 p.m. and October 16th from noon to 1:30. These will be at Paseo Nuevo in a tenant space that is near the Nordstrom building. There will be signs outside to direct people where to go. And there's also information on the city's website at the web address shown on the screen. That concludes my presentation.
Great, thank you so much. Before we move to the applicant presentation, I believe we have a representative from the Historic Landmarks Commission, and I'm not sure if we also have a representative from the Downtown Parking Committee. Do we have a representative from the Historic Landmarks Commission? Would you like to make any comments? No? Okay, thank you. And do we have a representative from the Downtown Parking Committee? Not seeing any. We will move now to applicant presentation. So I understand that we have a number of folks from the applicant team as well, and I understand that there is a request for additional time. So unless there's any objection from the rest of the commission, then we'll allow that. So please come forward and introduce yourselves as part of your presentation.
Who's next? Sorry? Oh, okay, thanks. Okay. Does that work? Okay, good. Thank you for your time today. It's really a pleasure to be here. My name is Duncan Patterson with Gensler Architecture and Design. Design principal. I specialize in retail, residential, and mixed-use environments, much like this. So been a great pleasure working with the entire team on this and with a lot of people's input, and we'd love to get your input today, of course. So,
yeah. Mr. Patterson, do you mind speaking into the microphone a
oh,
bit
sorry.
closer?
Okay,
Thank
it's a
you.
little far away. Okay. There I can see everything. Thanks. So let's start. Next page. So here's an aerial view of the entire site proper, and you see from Ortega all the way up to the Canary Hotel at the edge of Chapala there. This is looking from the south. De La Guerra Plaza alongside, and you see the massing and what is happening, et cetera. I think our site plan will explain the parameters of exactly what we're doing more clearly. It's all about the context. We know and understand we're right in the historic core, and we want to take a cue from adjacent and nearby historic buildings. The language of the architecture will respect that and be exactly like that. We've taken many cues from buildings adjacent to the site on eave lines and setbacks and little things to make it feel comfortable to State Street. Simultaneously, the architecture will be absolutely referential of the local context and the historic core. Next. The retail experience. This is huge. You know, in the retail world, things are changing immensely, and the days of department stores are over, and that's what's prompting this. It's a tough thing, but we are very bullish and getting really great responses from potential new retailers that want to be in an environment like this. And the way you make retail environments work today is foot traffic. You put people on the street, and you put residential, and you put other things. And that's how people now shop, and that's what people look for. So we're very optimistic about the entire nature of our program and how to really reinvigorate, not only with new tenants, but a look and feel to the spaces that's appropriate to what Paseo Nuevo can be. Here's a view again, a little storyline on the bottom of what's happening. We have about 80 income-restricted units at Lot 2, 233 market housing units on what is essentially the Macy's site. But if you look at this little axonometric, you'll see how we are bridging over the existing parking. And that's fundamental to how to do this effectively and efficiently. New anchor grocer on State Street, which we think will be a prime pedestrian opportunity there. The retail will be rescaled and targeted for redevelopment and on-site parking for all housing. We're essentially redoing this by using the parking that's there and improving it. We'll take one-way roads and make them into twos. We will restripe accordingly, and we'll segregate residential parking from retail parking. So it will actually be a better experience than it is today. If you've driven under there in the past, you get stuck in a one-way and you're not sure where you're at. There's a couple of those we're actually improving. Next. Here's a view from the northwest. You see Canon Perdido, Nordstrom, which is not a part of our site. Did we have the site plan in here that showed where the site is? Maybe that's next. It is. Okay, you'll see Lot 2's parking structure and the affordable income restricted housing that we're making there next to the Canary Hotel. What's in color here on the main site is what we're addressing today. And that's important because none of the historic buildings on the front of State Street really are touched in our scheme. We believe in them, they're perfect as they are, et cetera. And the revitalization and the creating of multifamily and the revitalization of retail is our entire goal. Next. Public spaces. This is a great opportunity. Amazingly, many retailers on site today are doing very well today, and we respect that, and we know that Paseo Nuevo has a great future. The idea is to really reposition, renovate, and put the right tenants in the right places. They're looking for foot traffic. They're looking for more residential downtown. Next. Private spaces. So this is a close-up aerial view over the rooftop of the multifamily at the Macy's site. When I said earlier that it crosses up and over the existing parking, we're doing some smart things there to get our units to work well, but to get parking to be able to, the existing old mall parking to work for residential. Of course, residential parking has to be private and safe and good, so we've bridged the building over. What you see here are a series of intimate garden decks, and these are not only to break up the massing of the building, but to create outdoor amenities 20, 30 feet up above that become up courtyards that look down on the streets below. That's of the nature of downtown Santa Barbara. It's the proper way to work in a historic core. Santa Barbara has a long history of buildings that do things like that, and we're very proud of what we're doing here. Next. So here's a shot on State Street. You'll see the historic building, I think it's the Fillion building on the left. We're playing with the cornice lines and setbacks to play to that. So the long view from State Street feels like it's always been there. Our goal is to make something that totally integrates into the historic district. You'll see the Balboa building in the distance, and of course, the rest of Paseo Nuevo proper continues on beyond that. Next. And here's what happens when you go inside. Today, it's rather sad with the closed Macy's, and even with the way Macy's was, with a fairly closed facade, is the entries don't work well. And retail is always happiest when it faces more retail. So we're going to create more traditional paseos than in the past. We're going to make them better, and we're going to spill out new retail that complements what's already there and kind of raises the bar for everyone. Next. And here's a view in the center. So you see the Balboa building in the middle of this drawing. We want to reposition the entire place. Retailers are going to want to see this new place they're coming to. They're already clamoring to see retail in downtown, and this should help everyone and everything. So this is a long elevation down State Street. You'll see our project nestled in the middle here. You have the Fithian building on the left, and then you go all the way up to Canon Perdido on the far right. And you'll see that we are lower than the highest building on the site, which is the Balboa building. So we're keeping ourselves compact in that zone and breaking the building massing down with courtyards and ornamentation. Next. So here we are in Chapala and Ortega. And this is an interesting area because this today is a rather blank but reasonably covered parking structure. One of the things about being sustainable that I learned a long time ago in my career is the most sustainable architecture is the architecture that reuses what's there. And that's what we're really proud of here is we are going to reuse these parking structures and reposition them. So the parking structure is still hidden inside and the residential comes out and over it. We'll create new arcades, decorations, and a look and feel on Chapala here, and soften the massing of the corner by stepping back with upper level terraces. Next. So this is a small piece on the affordable part housing. So this is part of City Lot 2. If you look at this little diagram, you see the Canary Hotel in the foreground, the paseo that wraps around Lot 2. And what we've done is we've looked at the height of the Canary and specifically their pool deck. They actually market themselves as having a view of the ocean. So when we build this, they still will. So we've taken a look at that height and made sure that everyone on the pool deck can still see unobstructed to the ocean. We take one row of the parking structure, and if you've parked there lately, like I did this morning, you realize it's a little confusing because it's got old-fashioned one-way things. We have a plan to restripe it and make it work better, and integrate in one piece of residential that plays to the existing paseo, which actually is a wonderful space and has a lot of potential to be even better. Put residential, put front doors on it, and it becomes a better place for everyone. It's about 6 floors. You'll see that's also on the upper right. Sorry about that. The unit counts are really important is we are conforming to affordable housing criteria to have an appropriate mix of studios, 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, and 3 bedrooms apartments. So this is a pretty good mix for that type and building type. We're about 55 feet high, so we're fairly low here, and I'll show you why in relationship to the Canary. There you go. So there's a section of the Canary. You see the Canary Hotel on the left at the bottom, paseo in the middle, and our diagram to the right, we're much lower than it. The very strange fuzzy photograph on the right is from Google Earth, and it shows you from eye level, standing by the pool, how you see the ocean, even with our project in the foreground. That fuzzy little box there is actually a parasol, but they don't come out very well on Google Earth. You'll see the massing is smaller than the Canary and is comfortable. It also can allow that little piece of retail on the face of the parking structure to have foot traffic near it. And again, retailers need foot traffic. They need residential, and they need these other things to survive now. It's a very different world than 20, 30 years ago. Next. And here's what it looks like. We'll work through the paseo to create courtyards, play areas, and grassy zones in the breaks between the building. We give them an address on Chapala, so it's comfortable to the rest of the city. And as you can see, it tries to fit into the character of Chapala and will work well with the Canary to the left, as well as the parking structure, which kind of plays off, and you see the arcade on the right. That's the potential retail that was built in that's never been leased. Something like this next door makes it possible to lease those spaces. And I think that's it.
Great, thank you. And it looks like you have 4 minutes and 52 seconds if you'd like to add anything to the presentation a bit later.
I'll add a few things because I think that, again, we've had the luxury of working with the city, with the landowners and everyone else to really understand this place. What we're very particularly proud of and want to emphasize to you is how seamlessly we're building this building into the environment. It's very important to us that it work really well in downtown. We can't afford to fail. No one can afford to do it wrong. For example, in adapting parking and entry and exit, et cetera, we are reusing all the existing spaces and moving them in a way so that residential has a clear path to their private parking and retail has a clear path to the best retail parking that feeds the Paseo proper. That was a problem probably with the original design, in my opinion, and I do a lot of retail projects, is the parking there was never particularly good. I think it was sort of shoehorned in. We've actually cracked that nut, and that's very important. For example, around the whole perimeter of the project, I believe we've used pretty much all the same curb cuts, or if we haven't used one perfectly, we've moved it slightly. Another example is Ortega. The market is key to something like this. Having a market in this area downtown is going to be phenomenal. And with residential coming into downtown, there's always a demand for that. We know that from brokers, et cetera. One of the things we've done there is we've actually, in what was the old Macy's footprint, allowed a drive in from Ortega that has about 30 or 40 spaces inside. You won't see them necessarily, but that serves as a great drop-off for the grab-and-go customer or the person who's ordered something in advance. And that's also a way of guaranteeing that we don't bog down Ortega or change anything in the traffic patterns of downtown. 3 minutes left and nothing else to say.
Great. Thank you so much. We appreciate the presentation.
Thank you.
That takes us to comments from members of the public pertaining to this specific item. Ms. Carmen, do we have anyone in person or remote who would like to give a public comment?
Thank you, Vice Chair Boss. At this time, I do have 2 speaker slips for in-person public comment. First, I will have Rob Fredericks, followed by Pat Saley. If anyone else in the room would like to speak under this item, you can bring up a speaker slip to me at this time. But we will begin with Rob Fredericks.
Good afternoon, Vice Chair Boss and Planning Commission. Just thinking about what I wanted to say. Well, I have it all written down, but last night I was reading a book called The Architecture of Communities by Leon Keir, and it provides me inspiration as we develop our housing. And every time I walk over here for public comment, I get the opportunity to walk by Meridian Studios, and I just take inspiration from that. I stop and breathe it in every time because it's like that's perfect. So always looking for great examples. Anyway, the Housing Authority strongly supports the vision to reimagine Paseo Nuevo as a vibrant mixed-use center that brings homes into the heart of downtown. Revitalizing this property is vital to State Street's future, and adding housing is absolutely the right move. That said, the details always matter. Whenever possible, affordable deed-restricted homes should be integrated within developments, not pushed to separate site. True mixed-income communities strengthen our community's fabric. Still, we understand the financial realities the leaseholder faces and appreciates the creativity of pairing an adjacent affordable project on Lot 2. Our main concern is feasibility and livability. Packing 80 units into this narrow portion of Lot 2 strains good design and limits light and open space. Arranged closer to 50 to 60 homes would deliver better quality and neighborhood compatibility, a building that the community can take pride in. Lot 2 is a valuable public asset and should remain under the public ownership. If it becomes the affordable housing site, the city should convey it unencumbered and unimproved to the Housing Authority to ensure local control and permanent affordability. We've met with both the city and AB and stand ready to partner as a developer, owner, and long-term steward of the affordable component, but the site must come free and clear with adequate gap financing. Based on current cost, we see an $8 to $10 million shortfall that cannot be bridged through the city's limited housing trust funds. Therefore, we recommend that the applicant contribute an in lieu fee of $125,000 per unit plus the cost, in addition to the cost to the partial demolition of Lot 2. Alternatively, if Lot 2 is not selected and AB chooses to meet its inclusionary or state units under state law on site, the developer should instead contribute funding into the local housing trust fund equivalent to the support that would have produced roughly 80 affordable homes on that lot. That contribution should cover the gap for the difference between the 24 affordable units required on site at Paseo Nuevo and the 80 units proposed on Lot 2. So in closing, we all share the same goal, a thriving downtown where people of all incomes can live and belong. The Housing Authority stands ready to help make that vision real, responsibly, beautifully, and in the public interest.
Thank you, Mr. Fredericks.
Thank you. Next up, we'll have Pat Saley.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name's Pat Saley, longtime city resident, former staffer. I was principal planner when the project initially went through and worked on the EIR. So, like you, I've watched it change tremendously through the years. We all agree it's a very important project. Especially given the city's huge involvement. It's different than what's proposed at La Cumbre, for example, and definitely precedent-setting nature. We are talking about potentially handing over public land and forgiving property taxes for up to 20 years, is my understanding. So just like Mr. Fredericks, I agree, we all want housing and we all want what's best for the downtown, EPV, and the city as a whole. So I thought you got some really good public comments, and I'd like to highlight a few for your consideration. First, it's really important that HLC modified their minutes yesterday and really strengthened their concern about the height and the massing and proximity to the three frontages, wanting it to be back and be perceived as lower buildings. I think people really want to know what other options were studied. Why can't the whole project site, including the inline stores, have some of the housing which would help lower the appearance from the public streets? And if it were spread out, hopefully the 60-foot height limit from our charter could be honored. And also, I think consideration should be given to reducing retail space because we seem to have that in abundance. There are two aesthetic policies, ER 29, visual resources protection. New development or redevelopment shall preserve or enhance important public views. Historic resources element says ensure respectful and compatible development. These were not mentioned in the staff report, but I thought they were important. And then lastly, leaving you with the question, could this be done as an AUD project? Still with similar or same number of affordable and market units spread over the site, 60-foot max, and not have or possibly sacrifice some retail space. I certainly think that's worth discussing. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Saley.
Thank you. At this time, I do not have any more speaker slips for in-person public comment, but looks like we have another one coming up.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Cameron Gray. I am speaking as a private citizen of Santa Barbara. I live on the west side, and I've lived in Santa Barbara for about 20 plus years now. As a millennial who has struggled to secure housing in the community, I just want to thank the Commission and the developers for bringing the project forward. I think it's incredibly important to develop affordable housing for our community, as well as the mid-range affordable housing for people that are of middle incomes. I'm less concerned about the height of the project. I understand that it's incredibly important to develop the community in a way that fits Santa Barbara's unique special character. But I do believe that with the issue of density, there's really only one good option, which is to go up. If we're going to provide more housing, we have to really look at what it means to do that, and I think it does mean being more open to increasing the height of developments. So I'm not super concerned about that, but I would like to see it built in a way that supports the vitality of State Street, supports the vitality of the businesses that are going to be operating around it, and really appreciate your consideration of the details of the project so that it strikes the right balance. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, I do not have any more speaker slips for public comment, though, again, if anyone would like to speak, they can approach the podium at this time. And I'm not seeing any movement, so we will move on to virtual participation. I see that we have 3 hands raised at the moment, though if anyone else would like to speak, they can raise their hands. I'll start with Pedro Toscano, followed by Steve Johnson and the Citizens Planning Association. Pedro, you should be able to speak at this time. Pedro, if you are unable to unmute, I will move on to Steve Johnson and come back to you. Okay, Steve, if you're ready, I'm going to give you permission.
Hope you can hear me.
You're good.
Thank you for the opportunity to comment. Some observations. There is no specific plan for this project. Very puzzling considering how energetically the city pursued a specific plan for the upper state projects. This issue was also raised at the recent HLC meeting. Adaptive reuse of the Macy's building has been deemed by the developer, I assume, to be too expensive. Yet, 112 adaptive reuse units have been proposed for the Nordstrom building. The concept reviews for the upper state projects, Sears and Macy's, included very detailed information about unit sizing. Today's plans provide zero information about sizing. The Commission cannot assess affordability without unit sizing detail. And I hope the Commission will carefully consider the recommendation in the land use element, not mentioned in the staff report, that average unit size should be on the order of 600 square feet for the high density priority overlay projects. This project segregates the deed restricted units from market rate units by over 1,000 feet. Other AUD projects are required to intersperse deed restricted and market rate units. Deed restricted units would be banked for future development. Never been done for another project. It appears to be a variant of piecemeal development. Finally, the project is residential, has a basement, and is located in a floodplain. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. With that, I will move on to the Citizens Planning Association. You should be able to speak at this time.
Okay, thank you. My name is Mary Ellen Brooks. I'm president of Citizens Planning Association. We appreciate the opportunity to comment today during this concept review. And we urge the decision makers to keep in mind that the city charter limits the heights of buildings in the city. In 1972, city voters approved the amendment to the charter to incorporate the current building height limits into the city charter, and that ballot measure passed by an overwhelming majority of voters. In the zoning ordinance, the height limit in the commercial zones has been 60 feet for many decades. The Paseo Nuevo complex is commercially zoned. CPA urges decision makers to stand by the charter's provision regarding the building height limits. State mandates should not outweigh our city charter. In some communities with city charters, it has been determined that the city charter could supersede the one-size-fits-all state mandates. We agree housing is needed, but not if it means the destruction of the community's character, and this has been determined in other cities. The city owns Paseo de Nuevo land. You can set the standards. The former Macy's building in the mall is 60 feet high, which is the maximum. Developers are now proposing 70 feet and 75 feet. At the time when state mandates are demanding that we ignore height limits, on the city-owned property at least, the city should adhere to city policies. The city can't fight builder remedy monstrosities if we don't even require the existing limits on our own property. CPA also questions the term community benefit. We really like to see that defined more. If an EIR finds a Class 1 impact cannot be mitigated, will the staff then advise decision makers this can be used as an overriding consideration? 100% affordable units might be considered a community benefit. A larger percentage of market rate housing is not, in our view, a real community benefit. Lastly, we do have concerns about the tax status of the project on city-owned land. For a project of this magnitude, there needs to be adequate fees and taxes to pay for additional services that will be required for this new residential population, such as schools, roads, parking, and resources such as water. Also, we do support the comments that were made by the Housing Authority on coming up with ways that these units can, at least the affordable units, can remain that way. We look forward to having the property revitalized, and I thank you for the opportunity to speak today.
Thank you. With that, I will give Pedro Toscano permission to speak one more time, if you can unmute. Otherwise, we will be moving on. And I am not seeing anything, so I'm going to acknowledge that we received written correspondence from Paulina Kahn, an anonymous submission, Patricia Saley, Rob Fredericks, Steve Johnson, Fred Sweeney, Grace Hallbrook, Brian Miller, Brian Kernall, and Mary Louise Days, and give it back to you.
Great, thank you. We'll move now to the question period, so I'll open it up to my fellow commissioners for questions, and then depending on time, we'll take a break before we get into deliberation. So questions first. I don't know. And I'm not seeing anything pop up for me. I'm not seeing anything on my screen.
Wiscombe is first on my screen. Oh, come look at yours.
I think it was Commissioner Wiscombe first? Okay. Commissioner Wiscombe.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Okay. So I tried to divide my questions into categories, and the first one is, I think, city attorney and city administrator category. So I want to know, did we consider, and a lot of these questions are really to get on the record for the public. So did we consider a ballot measure to change our charter for this specific site to allow the state-permitted 99-year lease to award owners upon completion of the city-approved housing? Did we consider that ever in
I don't believe so. The negotiation.
I know you're
Yes,
yeah.
but my history and sort of getting up to speed on the project, that has not been a discussion in the 3 years that we've been negotiating with AB on this. And again, it's been to the council 3 separate times, and that has not been brought up as a potential item for discussion.
Okay, so at this point in time, there's nothing we can do for 2025 to get it on the ballot, but for 2026, we could actually consider a ballot measure that would change our charter site specifically just for this site to a 99-year lease rather than turn title of the property, transfer title of the property from the public over to a private investor. Is that correct?
That is technically correct. I think if that was the direction that the council chose to go with the project, then this project would not happen. So this project, they have been holding the site for already 3 years, and I think there is a desire to move forward. They have an application in. We've kind of gotten the buy-in from the council 3 separate times on the terms of the disposition and development agreement. And so at this point, if that was a recommendation to move forward, my guess, without talking to the developer, is that this project would not move forward.
Okay, but it sounds like that was never an option that was offered to council. So I don't, that there wasn't a, this way or that way, that we just chose this direction. That's just my comment. Okay, I wanted to move on to AB's pro forma. And was it available to city council members and available to the public? I believe that was in 2023, since it's the basis for the current proposal.
No, it's proprietary information. It has been exchanged between legal counsels, and we have had to sign non-disclosure agreements so that it's not a publicly available document. But we have had financial consultants, the city's financial consultants, who have done project reviews of this type previously, reviewed the pro forma for consistency with market, current market conditions.
Okay, so that answers that question. Then I'll just do the follow-up question to that, which is down my list further. So from what I understand, city staff, together with consultants, Strategic Economics, and the Maxima Group, evaluated the encumbrances and obligations restricting redevelopment of the Paseo Nuevo and Macy's parcels under the current ownership structure, and assessed options available for redevelopment working in collaboration with AB Commercial. So, so these consultants performed third-party evaluations. Are there studies that they produced, written studies that they produced for evaluation, and are those publicly available?
So as part of the August 5th council agenda item, there was a review of sort of that analysis and an estimation of what the market return on this investment would be if this project proceeded. And so that was publicly available as part of the August 5th presentation to council. That return on investment was in a range based on some different assumptions, right. But I don't think it went much above, if I'm remembering off the top of my head, 4 to 6% return, basically, depending on different.
I think that's what you stated at HLC. Yeah. Okay. So there were not any documents produced. It was just a summary produced of what the consultants, Strategic Economics and Maxima Group, came up with. Is that correct?
Correct.
So there's nothing in writing that they didn't do any written reports?
Just the PowerPoint slides that were presented to council.
Okay. Okay, fine. Okay. You answered the question about, okay. So have we considered, other than back then when they were hired, which is, you weren't even here, Ms. McAdoo, but have we considered hiring a professional financial advisor during this time period moving up to where we are in 2025? A financial advisor with real estate expertise to negotiate with AB. And I'm just going to emphasize here, they are a global investment firm with over $800 billion. You had mentioned $676 billion. It's up another 20%, $800 billion in assets under management. So we do not have a professional financial advisor with that experience on our team. Is that correct?
Strategic Economics and the Maxima Group are our advisors. They are still on contract with City, and we meet with them weekly as part of the negotiating team. So they are part of our negotiating team.
Okay. but there's nothing available publicly that we can look at. In other words, if we're, you know, there's community members that, as you know, that are upset about the fact that this is public land that is possibly being turned over to a big investment advisory firm with a lot of billions of dollars under management. So there's nothing that we can, there's nothing that can be shown to the public that justifies this action that staff is recommending.
Well, I mean, I think that was what the presentation to council in August attempted to do, was to show what the returns were and why staff, as part of the negotiation, was recommending that the transfer of the land occur. When we got the exemption from the state of California to the Surplus Lands Act to be able to work on this transaction, there was an acknowledgement of there's not a value to this parcel because of the encumbrances that are currently on it with the ground lease. And so that is, there's those restrictions, you know, that is what's creating this challenge, and that we're having to negotiate those and to figure out how to move forward with a new project, giving all of the different restrictions that are on this property, both the lease term in the city's charter and the ground leases that are in place right now.
Okay. Okay, and then so the project is proposed under the average unit size density, AUD, program and the priority housing overlay. And I know it doesn't require another discretionary approval by Planning Commission, but I would like you to just explain again why this disposition and development agreement that's coming up is not going to be reviewed by Planning Commission. What makes it so different from the?
I'll let our city attorney's office
we
respond.
saw a development agreement that included a lot of financials back when Paseo Nuevo owners came to Planning Commission, and we had 3 meetings on it. And I just want to know what's different about this development agreement. Thank you, Mr. Henschke.
Honorable Chair, members of the commission. I think the city administrator explained it very well in her initial comments. The disposition and development agreement is not a land use document. It is essentially a purchase and sale agreement, if you will, for real estate. And that's the nature of the document. Yes, it does define what the project will be that will be built pursuant to the disposition and development agreement. But because it is not a land use document, a land use approval in and of itself, it does not come back to the Planning Commission. The project approvals will require design review, which will go to the HLC once a project application is submitted. The development disposition agreement will specify what the character, basically the project composition is going to be, how many residential housing units are going to be, where they are going to be located, what is the general height, bulk, and scale of the project from a project description standpoint. And that's actually before you today. You have essentially what the project description is. And then what the development disposition agreement does is it says, okay, if you meet all of these preconditions to closing, such as obtain HLC approval, obtain building permits, obtain financing, have your grading permits issued for both buildings, if you sign the affordability covenants restricting, if you sign the covenants restricting the affordable units to, well, one of the things council mentioned was primary residential purposes for the individuals living there. If you meet all of those things, which are still under negotiation, I'm giving you 4 instances, then if you do all those things, the city will transfer you the land, and then you will deliver the project that you promised to build, subject to the performance guarantees that we have in the development and disposition agreement. So it's just a fundamentally different document than a development agreement in the normal planning context. Why do they call them development and disposition agreements? I don't know. It's a term that has carried over, frankly, from the old redevelopment days. When we were doing redevelopment, we would do development and disposition agreements all the time. And they're real property transaction agreements as opposed to land use agreements. That's why it's not coming back to the Planning Commission.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Henschke, for that answer. I'm just puzzled why a transfer of the land is not land use, but, you know, what can I say? I'm not an attorney, so, okay. Let's see what else I have here. So in the project agreement from March of 2024, and I just want a clarification on what this means, it states, however, nothing in this agreement shall prohibit the Paseo Propco from seeking any land use approvals different from the land uses permitted on the property or obligate the Paseo Propco to develop the property or any portions thereof. Can you explain that, Mr. Henschke?
Sure, I'd be happy to. That was basically to avoid confusion that the project agreement was somehow an approval to proceed forward with an actual development. What the project agreement was, if you will, a memorandum of understanding of intent to proceed forward with the development of whatever documents were necessary to develop the property and to transfer the property once it got approved by the city council. That provision that was in the project agreement relieved them of a particular obligation to proceed forward with the project agreement if they chose not to do so in the future. So that was why it was in the project agreement. We had a very similar provision in the project agreement for Jacaranda Court. It was not a final approval document.
Okay, thank you for that explanation. I appreciate it. Okay. So we're not getting any information from Strategic Economics and Maxima Group, so I don't need to ask that question. Staff recommends that the city provide support to the project through a combination of the transfer of the Paseo Nuevo parcels, including the Macy's parcel, the contribution of financial value of the Nordstrom's parcel, the use of a portion of parking lot 2 for the affordable housing component, and an annual contribution equivalent to the city's share of the project's property tax obligation. So what is the rationale behind the transfer of the Nordstrom's parcel to Alliance Bernstein?
Again, it's looking at the financial feasibility of the project and the ability of the development to move forward. And so that conversation, we are continuing to negotiate with Shop Off on that value of that parcel. And so making a determination on how we move forward. So that's still under negotiation, hasn't been finalized yet, but that was the initial terms that we've been working towards.
So would you consider this a make or break on the project, Ms. McAdoo?
I can't speak to whether it's make or break because it's the developer's, sort of decision on that. I don't know that it's make or break, but it is an important component of the project feasibility.
So is the intent that if the transfer takes place, are they going to charge rent to the Nordstrom's property owners for the ground lease?
That would be a negotiation that they would do. They could choose to extinguish the ground lease that's the intent of transferring the properties is to extinguish the ground lease. They would obviously have to negotiate with the owners, the Shop Off owners of that ground lease for whether it's a new lease with them that would be between, Shop Off and AB, or if there's some other agreement that they come to. So it's really creating more flexibility across the site and allowing more flexibility in terms of what can happen on the site.
So if we transfer the ground lease of the Nordstrom's property to AB, are we transferring it with the
Reciprocal easement agreement?
No, with the deadline, the end date, 40 years from now?
Yes, yeah, so that would.
So that remains in place, but
Yes.
it doesn't for the Macy's or the Pacific?
Well, if basically a term of the transfer would be extinguishing the ground lease, I think that maybe Mr. Henschke can respond to
Yeah.
that as well.
If I could augment what the city administrator was saying, under the development and disposition agreement, there will be certain conditions that need to be met before any land is transferred. One of the things that has to be met in order for the project to work is that there has to be agreement with Shop Off as to elimination of some of the parking restrictions, elimination of the right now, there's a restriction in I'm going to call them the Paseo Nuevo documents. The Paseo Nuevo cannot be used for housing. That needs to be eliminated. So there will be no transfer of property to anyone until we have all of the assurances that the interested parties, AB, city, and Shop Off, are in agreement on what's going to happen. And so the transfer of the underlying property to AB as an economic issue would essentially shift the burden to AB to work out the transactions with Nordstrom's to get all of their necessary approvals so that for the transaction, then the property would transfer. We're not going to be transferring property that we have uncertainties on as to what's going to happen. Because we don't want to, if I can put it this way, we don't want to take our hand off the checker until we're certain of our move.
Right, okay, so what you're saying is the reciprocal easement agreement has to be in place amongst all the parties?
It has to be,
Yep,
it has to be redone.
okay.
And we all have to agree as to how that's done before any property gets transferred.
Right, okay. And then staff is recommending a financial contribution that includes land transfers and future tax revenues valued at between 32 and 39 million. Where did these numbers come up?
So that valuation came from Strategic Economics and the Maxima Group. They looked at the current value of the properties as they are encumbered, and then if they are transferred and the reciprocal easement is removed and some of these other restrictions and encumbrances are removed, what would be the market value of the land once all of the restrictions are removed? But that can only happen with agreement of the three parties. It can't happen other than that. And so, and then the property tax transfer, is still under discussion and negotiation. And so that is something that we're still talking to AB about in terms of that contribution.
Okay, thank you for that. And then, Ms. McAdoo, at HLC, you said comprehensive outreach and engagement with the public is forthcoming. So we have 2 meetings, open houses, I guess, of each an hour and a half long. First of all, do you find that sufficient because this is such a big effort to, we're basically, everyone wants housing, so it's exciting, but it's also kind of scary because we're giving the land
This
up.
is a big project for
Yeah.
the city. This is a huge project for the city.
So do you feel that that's enough public outreach that people are aware of, number one? And number two, are you going to, in these public meetings, talk about transfer of the titles of this land to a private investment firm from public ownership?
Yes, that will be part of the that will be part of the conversation. We'll talk about all of the different elements of the project, the financial pieces of the disposition and development agreement, the land use, design. There'll be opportunities for people to comment on all of those. I also see, this meeting, the HLC meeting, downtown parking. We're going to the Downtown Business Improvement Association Land Use Committee. We're going to the Chamber Board of Directors to present there. We'll have these 2 sort of community open houses. We'll be having specific outreach meetings with neighbors of Lot 2 and retail neighbors there. AB is having specific outreach meetings with the tenants in the mall to talk about, construction phasing, timing, so there's a lot. Those are just the 2 community open houses. We didn't sort of detail out all of the different opportunities that people will have. We have a project website up now. People can submit comments at any time, and so I think there will. And if we need to have more community open houses, we're happy to do that. I think there's opportunity before the council meeting in December to do that. We'll see how next week goes, and if we feel like we still need more conversation, happy to do that.
Yeah, I think there's, I think a lot of community members that don't watch any of these meetings because they think it's like watching paint dry. So they don't watch it, but they want to be informed. So, and maybe public open house isn't the way to, I shouldn't be deliberating, but isn't the way to go, because if you're going to actually make a presentation, it would be helpful for the public to know that there'll be a presentation. So, okay. Thank you very much for that. And I want to just move on to, I have a couple questions for staff and then a couple questions for the architect. And then I'm done. So in terms of staff, the pre-application materials do not provide details on the proposed public improvements, but I guess terms in the DDA will ensure the project is consistent with public improvement ordinance requirements. And I'm just wondering what type of public improvements might be required?
The project will be required to be consistent with Municipal Code Section 22, or Chapter 2244, which specifies public improvements required based on the details of the project. So at this point, we don't have those details to know exactly what those improvements would be. That's something we'll have to determine as we proceed with getting detailed plans for the project. And I will ask Mr. Henschke if he has anything to add on that.
Nope.
Okay, thank you. And then under the parking program in the staff report, parking for the affordable units will be provided in Lot 2. So is it the intent of the city or the new property owner to offer for sale monthly parking passes to those living in the affordable housing unit while offering free spaces to those in the market rate?
I think that's up for negotiation still.
Okay.
That level of detail hasn't been determined.
Okay, I didn't know, okay. And then my final question in this category for staff is, we've talked about 28 spaces, parking spaces that cover the 20,000 square feet of new retail component. That sounds low to me. Is that all right?
Commissioner Wiscombe, so it would be 47 spaces that would be dedicated to the market or retail space at the corner of State and Ortega. Some of those are existing spaces that would be repurposed for that market, that specific market use.
Okay.
There's 28 new spaces in the structure, so it went from 572 parking spaces up to 600 parking spaces.
So will we have 47 spaces then dedicated to the 20,000 square feet? Is that
Commissioner
right?
Wiscombe, yes, that's correct.
Okay. That's good to know. That's good. Okay. And then I have a couple questions for the architects. Mr. Duncan, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. Okay. This is kind of a architectural fluffy question because
We like those.
it's okay, yeah. I'm a retired landscape architect, so I know that. We have a policy, which is land use element LG15, which is sustainable neighborhood planning. It encourages preservation and enhancement of a sense of place and providing opportunities for healthy living and accessibility while reducing the community's carbon footprint. I think Ms. Price mentioned that. So I want to know how you respond to this policy in your design with regard to a sense of place.
Wow. No, I think much of the bones of Paseo Nuevo work and made sense in the late 80s when it opened. The days of department stores are gone. The repurposing of the Macy's building is good money after bad, frankly. It's just not reusable in the right way. Back to sustainability, sense of place, et cetera. The scale of the Paseos for retail that exists today quite frankly, is really good. It's scaled nicely and it's all good. The problem is that, like all paseos, there's always the challenge of getting people back and through them. And I always look at placemaking as about moving people through spaces that are comfortable, shaded, and a nice place worth stopping. The more activities you have around a space, the more people can find their way around and something to do or like. So what we've done strategically is we've reactivated Ortega, which I think is really important to downtown. As State Street closes to traffic or not, you have the crossings, at Canyon Perdido, Ortega, et cetera. That's where we've put the lobby and the front of house amenities for the residential building. That makes sense. We didn't put it into the mall, but we give residents the ability to walk in through the paseos also. So that's really just good planning. Second to that is the scale of some of the places is a little odd, and you can't tell from the renderings perfectly, but we've rescaled spaces to be just a little bit more intimate and a little more right. But rule number one of retail, it's the sound of one hand clapping. You got to have two. And today you never had that. The Macy's was always a bit of a problem, and having designed retail all my life, the problem with department stores is they're not always good urban citizens. They don't create place. They want you to go inside, spin around escalators, and not leave. It's like designing a casino in Las Vegas. Not quite that bad. But the point here is now we've relined the paseos in a really smart and effective way, and we've talked with leasing experts who understand the market. We know where retailers want to go and how to do it, and we will strategically place them and new and better retailers who will come in when they see residential and see the market in particular. We have a lot of interest in the market for other forms of retailers who want to come in and who don't always want to be right on State Street. They want to be on the quiet little cubby hole off of it. So I'm very optimistic about that. But the rescaling, if you walk some of the paseos today, they're actually really quite nice. We'll refresh them accordingly, and we'll make sure that people are moving from and through them better.
Okay.
And, Mom, I'm not going to stop. No, I think it's really important. And again, my whole family's from here in Santa Barbara. I don't live here anymore. I love this city. Chapala is our best friend. I've been saying that for a long time because whatever happens with State Street, with traffic or not, Chapala is built for a little traffic. So we've strategically thought really hard about how retailers who face out at the Paseo today at De La Guerra actually have better visibility from Chapala. To change those parking entrances, it's really not possible or sustainable, but to make them familiar and better, the big surprise will be when this is all done at the end of the day, when you drive in the parking structure, you'll say, oh, this is better. I now know where to go if I'm shopping, and I know where to go when I live. So.
Okay. So that's your sense of place. You did a good job with that.
Oh, thank you.
I'm pretty impressed. Okay.
Thanks.
And then Chair Grumbine and Commissioner Ensberg at HLC talked about the Paseo mid-block on Ortega through the development and potentially out to Chapala. So is this something, no, I'm not quite done with yeah. So, and this was this was a consistent request with HLC. So are you considering implementation of this Paseo as they recommended?
We need to look at how feasible that is.
Okay.
It's more challenging than it appears. There will be ways you can possibly walk through. However, one of the things, if you're going to get this market into this community, which is super important, is we have found parking spaces there. When you mentioned the 47 spaces that occur there, that's actually the back floor of the Macy's. Remember, the Macy's is a big box, and you can't fill a big box. So we're actually carving that in. You can't make the market work without a service dock. You can't make the parking work without some adjacent to it. A market is not going to thrive or survive without good adjacent parking. And what we're then doing is the parking that's subterranean Macy's today, and then that weaves its way up around all the confusing ramps on Chapala, we've segregated those two really smart, restriped some one-ways so they're two ways and easier to code today to drive around. But that surface that we build into Macy's floor off Ortega is absolutely essential to getting a market and better retailers there. Because the market means you're coming out with a basket or groceries, and they will demand some adjacency. So the beauty of that is there will be pedestrians moving around in that space, but we simply haven't figured it out yet.
Okay, and I think, and Commissioner Uli, who's here today, talked about the site should be read as a collection of, perhaps should be read as a collection of buildings. So are you thinking about that approach too, as a collection of buildings? I know.
Music to our ears.
Yeah,
We,
okay, good.
we like collections of buildings, and we
Yeah.
see that as a very positive piece of input.
Okay, great, thank you. And one last question for you. You have made a couple statements that I don't want a long explanation, but just kind of a little small explanation of a retail experience. You said this is huge, and reinvigorating with new tenants, revitalization of retail, and raises the bar for everyone. Those were actually 4 comments you made today. I have more that you made, but so what do you mean by this? Are you making this a real upscale development, or these sound?
No. Good placemaking doesn't involve those things, meaning you're not trying to go upscale, downscale, whatever. The market determines that. The
Okay.
architect doesn't, the clients often don't, the landowners don't. It's who wants to be there and where. We're going to improve the place. We're going to improve foot traffic. If you walk Paseo today, there are back corners that are dead quiet, and there are retailers that have failed there. And that's because Nordstrom's gone and Macy's is gone. Till you solve and put feet on the ground, it doesn't matter what you do to it. It's not about decoration, or if you made a really pretty place, if you didn't put feet on the ground, it doesn't work.
Right.
So our strategy is to create the spaces within, and the tenants will show.
Okay.
It's all driven by the market.
Okay, thank you very much for your comments, I appreciate it. I just have one last question, Madam Chair. I forgot to ask, I would like to know why the transfer of Lot 2 to AB versus the transfer of Lot 2 to the Housing Authority, why that's in the mix at all.
And I think Mr. Henschke can explain a little bit further. It has to do with state density bonus law, so we'll explain that.
So in the development disposition agreement, we don't know exactly how the transfer of Lot 2 and what portion is going to happen yet. It will go either to AB, if the Housing Authority is on board at the time we do the closing, it would go to the Housing Authority. So, but if the Housing Authority chooses not to participate, which we hope they do, but if they don't, there may be another affordable housing provider that AB brings to the table that would provide those units, the construction of those units. So we don't know the answer to where the property is going to end up, but it's going to end up someplace because it's necessary in order to finance the project that they have control of the land.
Right, okay. Thank you for that answer, and I'm sorry I took so long. I'm done with my questions.
No, all
Thank
the
you.
questions have been asked now.
Thank you.
So we're all
Thank you very much.
We're going to move to Commissioner Bauke.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Commissioner Wiscombe, because you at least shortened my pile of questions a little bit, but also probably generated some more, unfortunately. And first off, thank you to the staff. This is quite an effort. This thing's got lots of hair, it's got a lot of history. For the public, I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions and don't feel like you're being under a disposition, but it is sort of like that to get it all out there. So I'll start through this. We start off with 1987 with this DDA, which no longer is applicable, if I'm correct. But we do have the November 23, 1987 REA, the reciprocal easement agreement. This is still effective, correct? Okay.
Correct.
And the parties to those agreements at the time were the RDA, then the city. Developer, Macy's is major 1, and Nordstrom is major 2. And then there were ground leases that the developer had Macy's/Broadway had one, and Nordstrom had one. Here's a set of questions. City assumed the RDA's position as successor agency, correct?
Correct.
AB, through a deed in lieu of foreclosure, acquired the developer's interests and obligations.
Correct.
Shop Off and Partners in November 2021 purchased the Nordstrom improvements and ground lease.
Correct.
From who did they purchase their interests? I couldn't figure that out.
I think it's Nordstrom.
They purchased from Nordstrom.
Nordstrom's
corporate,
direct.
yes.
Okay, thank you. What did Shop Off pay for the Nordstrom holdings?
I don't think we have that information, yeah.
Okay.
We could go back and look at probably find it, but I don't know that we have that off the
Okay.
top of our.
The reason for why asking that question is there's been statements made that the AB improvements and the ground lease have no value, and somebody bought something for value, so those two do not connect in my mind. Nordstrom's improvements and ground lease is currently owned by who, and how did AB acquire that? I missed that transfer when Broadway, or, sorry. Yeah, so when the Broadway Macy's folks walked away, who did they hand the keys back to? Was it the city with the ground lease, or how did AB ever end up with that piece of it? Was it the prior developer bought it, or how did that? I'm missing that piece of the equation.
Okay, so the city has never owned any of the ground leases. The city owns the underlying dirt,
Okay.
okay? The current owner, Shop Off, acquired the ground lease from Nordstrom's. AB acquired the ground lease for both the Macy's parcel and the inline shops from the prior Paseo Nuevo developments, Carter Holly Hale, those were all together. And so AB got both ground leases to Macy's and the ground lease to the mall shops together with its transaction, the deed in lieu of foreclosure.
Okay, that was something I just couldn't put together, thank you. So the parties now are the city, AB, and Shop Off, correct? The prior DEDA and the current Paseo Nuevo agreements, which are a litany, I think there's like 5 or 6 or 7 of them that are still operational, had all the parties as participants. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. However, now with this proposed DDA, only the city and AB are proposed to be party of this development and disposition agreement. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. To go forward with the city's AB DDA, Shop Off would have to sign off and terminate its vested interests in the existing REA and the parking agreements and parking covenants. Is that correct?
Yes, it's partially correct. All of the parties would have to agree to the terms of whatever the new controlling documents would be with respect to the use of Paseo Nuevo. So yes, Shop Off would have to agree to, for example, residential use at the Macy's property.
Okay.
Similarly, AB would have to agree to whatever would be done on the Nordstrom's parcel other than a department store. If they wanted to put an office, AB has to agree.
Okay. So that leads me to the question is, why isn't Shop Off part of this DDA?
At this point, Shop Off has not submitted, they're not part of the AB application. This is dealing with AB's leasehold interests are this application.
But a condition to close of the disposition and development agreement would be the resolution of the reciprocal easement agreement issues with Shop Off. But since this is a controlling document simply for the parcels that AB owns, that's why it is only between the city and AB.
I understand the logic. Okay.
Yeah.
The question is, my experience with shopping centers, you want all the parties at the table and not one and then try to deal with the other, and especially when you've got this cross collateralization of agreements. Seems like this could be a little bit of a problem going down. If they don't want to participate, Shop Off could say, pound sand, and the whole thing could go away.
Yes, that is a risk, and, but again, none of the transfer of any of the land would occur without without Shop Off agreeing to what's going on and the changes in use.
Okay, moving on. Is there a detailed, precise plan for the redevelopment of Paseo Nuevo, which details the ultimate complete redevelopment by all the parties?
In terms of Shop Off and AB.
And any future, because I hear talks about future too.
So right now, so originally, if you remember a few years back, the original project plan was to sort of take down the entire shopping center. And I think that was a comment that was made, and to build 500 housing units there. That became financially inviable, because what would have to happen is you'd have to build an entire new foundation to preserve the parking lots. And so from a financial perspective, doing that was not financially viable. So then AB went back to the drawing board just to look at the Macy's building. And so that conversation, there could be a future development, there could be future redevelopment over the retail spaces in the future, but the project that is under consideration is being proposed right now is simply the redevelopment of the Macy's building for housing, and the Lot 2 affordable housing units. So there's not I know, like a specific plan. It's not in that, it doesn't require it, because there's not going to be multiple phases of the project. There's just this somewhat simple application for the housing units on the Macy's parcel.
And to add on to that, let's jump ahead and assume that the project gets approved and we've met all the conditions and the property is transferred. Any changes to what I'm going to call the mall shops would be subject to whatever the land use requirements are for that change at that particular time. So just like any other private development application where there would be a change, they would have to go through the land use process at that time. The current contemplation is that, as the applicant's architect explained, build new residential, do some upgrades with regard to the mall shops, and then do the residential on Lot 2. Those developments would essentially need to happen in relative concurrence so that we can meet state density bonus law.
But I think Mr. Henschke just simplified is, if they decided to come back at a future time and put housing on top of the retail, they'd have to go through a new application process at that point.
Yeah, and honestly, my concern about that is the commentary is, this is going to be very, very disruptive when they build just this piece, and the idea of coming back and doing something seems crazy to me. It will also affect their own bottom line. It's just not something you want to do, is come in and piecemeal a shopping center like this. So, sorry for the commentary, Chair. So going on to the subject of parking, we've got all these covenants. There's 3 agreements, one for each lot, and there's the obligation between all these parties for the maintenance or the existence of 1,105 115 parking spaces in Lot 1, 2, and 10 collectively, and specifically 585 parking spaces in Lot 2 specifically is called out in Article 1 of the parking covenants for Lot 2. I noticed there was a statement to the parking, downtown parking committee that it was Lot 1, and I would have to tell you that was an incorrect slide that you had before them. It's actually Lot 2 has the 585, and that other requirement is for 1 and 10. So just put that out there, and I can hand this to Dan. Just what was presented was inaccurate, but so never mind on that. Other than that, I just want to make sure you got that corrected. is it correct that under the current parking agreements and parking covenants that the parking must be maintained and replaced in 2 blocks of the Paseo parking lot? This is lot 2 and 10.
I think the answer to your question is no. Does the parking have to be replaced within 2 blocks? No. What you may be referring to in terms of the replacement parking had to do with the original requirements for the site, not the ongoing provisions. But the point is that with respect to this entire, this project that includes parking lot 1 and parking lot 2, and then other parking that's over in parking lot 10, once we get to the final negotiations of the development disposition agreement, those parking covenants with regard to the reservation of parking spaces and how many are dedicated and how many are not would change. What we do know is that there will be a reduction of, I believe it's 183 parking spaces in Lot 2 as a result of the loss of, the taking down of one parking bay, if you will, so that we have the property for the housing construction. Within Lot 1, there will be additional spaces, as was described by staff. The amount of spaces in parking lot 10 are not being changed, but how those are ultimately allocated will have to be the subject of the DDA, and we are currently in negotiations over what that ultimately will look like.
So just to confirm what you said is, there is a proposal to demolish 187 spaces in Lot 2. Okay.
Yeah.
And is it fair?
186 spaces.
One document said 87, one says 86. We'll take the lower.
Just for the
okay?
record.
I will defer to the experts.
Okay. Because I've heard 2 numbers and seen 2 too. Okay, so is it fair to say that the taxpayers paid for Lot 2? The construction of it? Through the RDA and the city's financing mechanisms and the property taxes?
The lot 2 and 10 were financed by the RDA using tax increment financing, plus a $2 million loan from the Paseo Nuevo developers because the redevelopment agency didn't have enough tax increment financing. So is it fair to say the public paid? Sure, because the only revenue that a redevelopment agency has is tax revenue, tax increment revenue.
So my question is, what's the current value of that portion of the parking structure that's going to be torn down?
We'll have to take a look at that. I'm not sure I have that. I don't think we have that number right offhand, so we could definitely look at that.
And since concrete, steel, labor have clearly accelerated in price since the 1980s, early 90s when this was constructed, I would expect that the construction cost to just replace what you're suggesting to be torn down is somewhere between $75,000 and $90,000 a space, which means the city's contributing to this global asset managed company another $14 to $17 million of public improvements. And so I personally want to understand why we would do that. Okay, and that probably leads me to a bunch of questions I'm going to have for Dan about the affordable housing. But,
And I will say that, it is, the ability to construct 80 affordable housing units restricted feels like as a community benefit, that would be a significant community benefit above and beyond what they're actually required to build. So, they're only required to have 24 units. So that is, the value. That's why, we've entered into that conversation about the 80 units, because we think it's not just a benefit to AB to build all of those units. It's a benefit to the overall community.
Okay, so under the parking agreements, the 186 spaces are currently required to be replaced. And is AB going, and AB will be destroying that 186 spaces pursuant to what we're discussing here. Isn't that a gift of public funds? Just from a general, it seems to me like it's just a giant gift of public funds. And does that meet the legal standard that can this city hand them something of that great value?
I mean, I think it's, go ahead.
I mean, I can answer the legal question. You can.
I would just say, this is as part of negotiations where, city land is involved and there is, because of the restrictions that are on this property and sort of the unique nature, there are negotiations that happen that can where land transfers and transactions can happen. And that is, it's a policy consideration for the city council to make, as part of the agreement, the disposition and development agreement, and, the perceived value of that land. But that land transactions like that, happen throughout the state of California, and transfers like that happen to facilitate and enable development. We did the same thing for the Housing Authority and transferring the Jacaranda Court for the commuter parking lot over to the Housing Authority, which, under the same premise could be considered a gift of public funds. So it's not, but I will let the attorney, sell the legal definition of why it's not a gift of public funds.
Yeah, I want to make sure that it is not a gift of public funds. And so although the consideration that is being exchanged is not necessarily monetary, the city council is the ultimate decider as to whether or not the benefit that the city is receiving in the form of affordable housing is compensation for the transfer of the land and potentially the loss of 187 parking spaces. Those 187 parking spaces are not required to be replaced. There's no law that requires them to be replaced. They are within this particular project. This proposal meets all of the land use parking requirements that are established by the city's municipal code, as the planners have explained in the staff report. But in terms of the consideration, both for the underlying fee and under Lot 2 and the underlying fee under the Paseo Nuevo itself, the exchange in terms of the promises by the developer and the commitment by the developer to build the project that it's building is sufficient consideration for that transfer. And so I cannot conceive of any circumstances under which a court would determine that this is a gift of public funds or somehow otherwise ultra-virus for a city, or especially a charter city, to engage in.
Okay, thank you for your response on that. And so since this portion of the central business district is in the zone that the state law now says the city can't mandate parking, and for especially residential projects, how is the city going to meet its long-term needs for parking in the CBD if they destroy 187 spaces that are currently exist? It seems to be counterintuitive of what we as a body and have this as an investment and for the long-term future of your downtown, because there's going to be more projects. We got one we approved just down the road that has no parking, and there's going to be more of those. So, and even in this case, we're proposing in these affordable ones that would have no parking except for maybe in the structure adjacent. So how is the city looking at this globally from a long term? I mean, I still have a hard time of taking such a significant public asset and taking it off books, because the city isn't out running around building other parking structures and honestly doesn't have the financing to do that now. They surely don't have an RDA to do it any longer. So.
Well, we're going to pull up a slide that has Commissioner Bauke, the parking analysis provided by the applicant. And I hear the concern about the long-term, parking demand. It is the conflict we face with new state laws. I mean, every community is facing that, where we are not, housing projects are not required to provide parking. And you've seen it throughout the community where neighborhoods, are impacted with parking on the street. And so we are looking at, one of the things that we've implemented is residential parking permits for residents in the downtown. So paying into the garages, that could generate revenue that long-term could help us maybe redevelop some of the surface lots and provide more parking spaces for additional residential units. So I don't think that's necessarily germane to this conversation, but it is a concern. But I think you can see the analysis that's been put up here. The team can walk through that in terms of this particular project and the parking and the replacement.
I actually saw your presentation this morning.
Okay,
so
great,
You don't have to do it
Commissioner
for me, but for the public, you can feel free to put it in the record.
Sure. So this is an applicant parking analysis, but what it shows is the retail square footage, the change from the original program for Paseo Nuevo of about 450,000 square feet down to approximately 175,000 square feet. Using our municipal code parking ratio of two spaces per 1,000 square feet, the required parking stalls changed significantly from the program that exists today to the program that's proposed, down to 350 required parking stalls. What the applicant did in this table was actually fairly conservative. So they included the 233 market rate units as part of the 413 number that you see before you, along with approximately 100 units for a potential project at Nordstrom, along with incorporating 80 units of affordable housing in Lot 2. So that's where you get the 413 number. And it's assuming that in this table, it assumes that there is one space per unit. So that's why I say it's conservative, because technically parking for residential units in the central business district is not required, nor is it being proposed at this time for the 80 affordable units. So then you see the total required spaces increasing from that 350 up to 763. And then the total parking provided under lots 1, 2, and lot 10. Even if you remove lot 10 entirely from this calculation, you still get a couple hundred extra parking spaces beyond what lots 1 and 2 will be providing. And you'll see that total excess parking number at the bottom. I did a calculation on the left-hand side that shows what the excess parking spaces would be if we're only accounting for the market rate units. So it would be 946 spaces existing.
Thank you. And so if I could have the architect up here, Duncan, I think it was Duncan, yes.
Yes.
And could we put up a aerial view or the site plan, if that's possible, Pat? While she's doing it, my first question is, could you explain the building construction types that are being used to build this project? Specifically, what types, are you doing type 1 steel or type 5 sticks or a combination thereof?
Doing stick over concrete.
Okay, you're doing stick over concrete, okay. So I noticed that there are 6 floors on one of the pieces. How do you get to 6 floors over a podium when the Uniform Building Code only allows 4?
Essentially, we will create a concrete podium base at the old Macy's and go to stick from there. However, we have to step it up, so it's a little bit complex because we have to line our floor plates to the existing parking structure that we're building over. So you will see a smaller amount of stick structurally engineered over the ramps at the Chapala and Ortega corner, and you'll see more stick frame going down, but we are 2 code essentially. I believe 5 over 2 would be the actual term for it. So.
Okay. Next question I had was on consideration of affordable housing on-site. And my question, and Dan, if I blind you, so you make sure I don't hit you with that. Was there consideration for the piece that is in between, especially this piece right here, to do the same process that you're currently doing right here, to basically, with sticks, build over the existing parking lot for a separate building, could be conveyed as a separate fee, airspace fee interest, for affordable housing at that location, and why isn't that on the table?
We've explored many options, and it's not because that particular portion of the parking structure that's above retail, you essentially have about 18 feet of retail, and then the parking up above it. If you were to build stick frame above there, the cores, exiting shafts, and elevators to get to, would not get you to any street address. In other words, building over that would be extremely difficult. You'd more or less have to tear down the structure where it says E-retail there, rather than build and punch through it. On the Macy's side, the Macy's ends approximately where the swimming pool is, on the very right side on Ortega. So from there under, we are able to straddle and span with steel and concrete over the existing parking. If we tried to do it over this area, because we don't have to take vertical cores, shafts, or fire and life safety down through the building, we can do it at the Macy's area. So the building feeds from the middle. The lobby is on the middle of Ortega Street. Coming in, your vertical circulation is in the middle, and then you come out to the edges. If you built over where you just described, you'd more or less have to tear out that whole parking structure, and the cost would be prohibitive.
Okay. And has somebody at the city looked at this analysis as to what he's saying as far as building feasibility, folks at the building department, whether this, I believe him, but I would like, Ronald Reagan's, comment about verification, that
We're happy to have our building staff, review that. We have done that with the structural engineering team for Lot 2, and so just sort of understanding the feasibility and the structural analysis. So yes, we could absolutely have the building department sort of do a peer review of that analysis as well.
Yeah, I believe him. I just would like that, at least, because people have asked that question.
Understood.
Trust me.
It's a fair question.
If I could augment, if you recall back, the original project agreement that was approved by the city council did have construction over that, in that particular area, but that was determined for the reasons that Duncan stated to be infeasible, which is why, when this went back to the council in August of '25, the proposal was as you've seen presented before you today.
Right, I understand that. And so then the other question is, this location here in the middle of the project, why not just go to grade, start all over, build a nice more units there, or the affordable housing portion right there?
Similar issue in this case. Part of that, and access to that, is almost impossible through the land we control, whether it's vehicular or even to get to a front lobby. So what would happen is you would have to either blow through that same e-retail parking structure that we just spoke about to get to it. If you needed to get parking there, you would also be overground, and you would have no possibility of adjacent parking there. Whereas in the other locations, you can at least get from your car to your residential unit. So not particularly feasible. Also, you essentially would wipe out the core of some of the retail that's doing particularly well and probably will in the future. So you would have to tear that all out. From a construction staging point of view, it would be extremely prohibitive as well.
Okay, well, thank you. And I would like that to be also verified by your building officials, please. Okay, now I think I just touched on, I no longer need you, thank you. Which is, these are questions that go back to the city attorney on affordable housing. It seems to be, from what I've heard, Dan, that you're making the point that the density bonus law, as you're interpreting it, requires this contiguous theory. And I ask you, what section are you referring to in the density bonus law that is driving this contiguous application? Because section 65915F doesn't support that contention, and there's other pieces in the density bonus law that allows for off-site affordable housing as part of density bonus. So I'm trying to understand why we're so wedded to doing this lot to tear down a parking structure and using the density bonus as some kind of requirement. And because I don't see it, I see sections in the density bonus law, especially 65915G2G, which specifically allows the city to allow the affordable to be within a quarter mile of, and that's all that has to be done differently is the city could find a piece, hand it to AB, and AB hand it to the affordable housing folks, and you don't have this contiguous thing, and you don't have to tear down the parking structure. So I'm trying to understand this shackle we seem to be having because, for reasons in which the applicant has discussed, it's hard to do it internally, but tearing down such a big piece of public infrastructure is very, very concerning. It seems like that's what's driving it. I think there's other ways around this. So.
Honorable Chair, members of the Commission, Commissioner Bakke, if it only were that easy. But we did look at whether it could be done off-site. And the particular section that you referred to relating to off-site within a quarter mile applies only to a situation where the developer is dedicating land for affordable housing. It does not apply to the primary requirement, which is the development of the affordable housing itself, which is under 65915B. That's the primary requirement is under B, which is providing the affordable housing. The section that you referred to about adjacency for the lot, although the language is odd, I have opined that requirement requires that the housing units be built either be incorporated within the development that includes the market rate units, which would essentially put the affordable units at the Macy's site along with the market rate, or they can be located on an adjacent site so long as it is part of the same development application proposed by the same developer. And that's what is the Lot 2 configuration. We have looked at the possibility of using other sites in the city, and based upon this particular application, we find that that is not meeting the requirements of the state density bonus law for the provision of the units. The primary section is 65915B, which is the mandate for the providing of the affordable housing. In terms of your suggestion that the city could just go buy another lot and then transfer it to AB and then AB could transfer it, no, we can't. Because if we bought another lot, we'd have to go through the Surplus Land Act provisions before we could dispose of that lot.
That wasn't my suggestion. My suggestion is have AB just go buy a lot or buy you one of yours.
If AB were to go buy a lot and then propose to donate that lot, that is something that we could take a look at the time, but that is not a current proposal before us. And so I have to base my opinion upon the facts that I have before me.
Yeah, I understand that. So I just want to put that out that there's a couple other ways to skin this cat without tearing down a significant public piece of infrastructure. So I will pass the baton to others. I have another probably 20 questions, but I think others should have some time. Thank you.
We'll reserve those. We'll go to Commissioner DeLuccio.
Oh, boy, hopefully mine will go a little more easily. But so far, these questions have been excellent. I'm going to just turn it more to a little more land use. So I just want to understand, I know the height, I'm not going to belabor on the height, we heard so much about it. However, I know we had this, the height issue with Le Cumbre, and I hear comments from the public about how, are we sure we can't go higher? You know, what can we do to go higher? Didn't you guys explore that for the Le Cumbre project with an outside attorney firm or something in order to determine that this is in compliance with the state density bonus law, what we're doing? Do you guys recall that?
I'm not working on the La Cumbre Plaza project, so I have general familiarity with the issues, but I would refer this over to, I know you were looking my way, but I'm going to.
I'll look anyway, but that's my recollection, how we arrived at, indeed, they can go higher and
Through the chair-
supersede what the
through
charter
the chair,
said.
Commissioner DeLucio, that is correct. We sought outside counsel on that interpretation of state bonus density law because we had a concern about our city charter height limit precluding them from doing that, or that was our stance. And we were corrected that they are allowed to waive the height requirement through an incentive or a waiver, a development standard waiver under state bonus density law.
I just wanted to clarify that, because that has come up. And the question is, so I just want to understand on this one, we're proposing to go 75 feet on the main building, correct? So help me on, and what is the Balboa building? How high, is that 76 feet high? Do we?
Pull up that long elevation.
I'm just curious, they're pretty similar in height, aren't they?
We are slightly lower than the height of the.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, so that's good.
Yeah, you'll see that dashed line
Yeah.
across the two. They're a few
And
feet.
then for the affordable housing on Lot 2 that's being proposed, I know the attorney letter says something like 70 feet high. However, when I looked at some illustration that you had up, there's an illustration
Right there.
that actually says 55 feet.
And 7.5 inches.
Right, and then with the mechanical, it would be 5 feet higher. But, so are you going 70 feet, or are you going 55 plus the
No,
screening?
55 plus.
And that's because of the Canary Hotel?
That was one of the reasons we wanted to stay lower, to not block their views. Yes.
Okay, so thank you for that. So the other question is.
Commissioner, if we could have Ms. Price just kind of walk through the height.
Oh.
She was just going to provide a clarification.
Thank you.
For that one.
Thanks.
Commissioner DeLucio, through the chair. When the pre-application was submitted, it was consistent with what was discussed at council on August 5th, which was the potential for a height up to 70 feet on Lot 2. Since then, based on feedback from the community and Canary Hotel, the applicant has looked at alternatives, and that is why you're seeing a lower height here today. So we wanted to be consistent in what was presented with the materials originally submitted, but we expect that the ultimate request would be for less than the 70 feet.
Yeah, and that's really it's very important that we point that out, that it's not going to exceed, in this case, the 60 feet. The other question is, the demolition of the Macy's site, I don't know, whoever wants to answer these questions, I don't have people I'm going to look at. The demolition is 135,000 square feet of the Macy's building. How many square feet will the new building be?
The housing?
Yeah, not the house, the market rate housing, the 233 units. How many square feet will that building be?
If you could pull up that slide.
I'm just trying to get a sense of demolishing 135, how much more are we
It'll
getting?
be 330,000 square feet.
Correct.
330,000, it's almost 3 times the size.
Well, but the floor-to-floor dimensions of residential are half of what a mall dimension is.
Okay, so I won't ask you this question, what the FAR is going to be, but I don't know if you've done that analysis. I know you don't use that in this city, but do you know it?
We have not done the FAR analysis as it doesn't apply.
I know, okay. Okay, but you answered the question. What about I don't see any landscaping on here, or any or open or private space, I don't see a lot of that going on here. I see a lot of building mass. Is there
Commissioner
requirement for that?
DeLucio, so there would be additional work done at the Historic Landmarks Commission hearing when it goes through the land use entitlement application, but at this point, because we're in the PRT process, those details have not been fully developed.
But is there a requirement of a percentage of private and open space that would be?
Under the AUD program, there are a couple of options for applicants to meet open space, open yard requirements, which would be open space for the residents. Typically, with a project like this, the applicant would choose to provide 15% of the net lot area as open space or open yard area. It would be common among residents, and it would be required for both the Macy's building and for the Lot 2 building.
Thank you. Just want to make sure something's in there that we are going to have some open space, and I know that HLC will deal with the landscaping. And then the comment came up from Mr. Frederick, something about paying a $125,000 unit in lieu fee. Is the city set up to do something like that?
I'm not sure what
He said instead of building the units or contributing $125,000 per unit.
We do have an in lieu fee program, but that would be something that would be a negotiation. It's not, that would be above and beyond potentially their inclusionary requirement.
Yeah, we need to understand that because they're proposing a state density bonus project, actual housing units need to be built. So that's what we're talking about. I think Mr. Fredericks may have been talking about how do they bridge the gap for the additional units that are being proposed at Lot 2, but I need to explore with Mr. Fredericks further in the context of the development of the disposition and development agreement, what it is that he's asking and how it would work.
That's fair. That's a fair answer. And I mean, as long as you're asking technical questions here, I know that something came up about capping some of the affordable units, not to build, if they build the 80 and they only need a 24, then the balance could be used perhaps, instead of putting more affordable in the future, they use the cap of what's remaining to use if they build more units.
Yeah, we're currently not set up to have a program like that.
Okay.
So I think that would be, it would not be, potentially captured as a requirement in the disposition and development agreement, but something that could be explored in the future if and further negotiated. So I think at this point, it's not going to be something that's explicitly laid out in the disposition and development agreement, but something that would be subject to further discussion and policy action at the council level.
Okay. And then will the market rate and the affordable, the goal would be to build them concurrently, correct? And so what assurance that will we have that it will be built concurrently? Has to be a certificate of occupancy we don't issue until they're built?
Honorable Chair, members of the commission, those details are part of the development disposition agreement negotiations and would have to be a condition prior to the closing of the land transfer. So we want to, this is what I was referring to about making sure that we have in place all of the things that are required that we know at the time the land is transferred, that the projects will be built. Now, whether they're built exactly simultaneously with construction going on at the same time, that's one possibility. Could they be deferred, for example, if the housing authority is doing it, the project, and we have everything in place so that it can go forward, could they construct on the housing authority time period and still let the market rate go forward in advance? That's something that we can discuss in the context of the development and disposition agreement. But the legal requirement is that both have to be available.
Okay, I'll leave it at that for now. So let me move on to CEQA a little bit. With AB 130 and SB 131, does that make this project exempt now from CEQA?
I think the answer is yes.
So after the DDA, then the next step would be it goes to HLC. So in the meantime, right now, is there any environmental work being done, or does it need to be done because of these new state laws that came out?
It needs, whatever environmental work needs to be done, must happen before the DDA is approved.
Oh, okay, I get you. And also, as far as the outreach of the events, does the city have an information officer?
We do.
Oh, you do? So how are you doing, who are these events that you're putting? First of all, thank you very much. You've done a lot of events in a sense. People are not watching them perhaps, but there's been a lot of different events, and I've watched most of them. But, so I have a question. Who are you trying to reach with these events at this point?
I think it's just people who are interested community stakeholders, and so the council had wanted us to make sure that people had an opportunity to express commentary on the projects. I think for me personally, I think I'm personally concerned about, neighboring businesses and sort of understanding potential impacts, making sure that the tenants within the mall have an opportunity to express their concerns and questions, and then obviously our various stakeholder, sort of key stakeholder groups and boards and commissions.
Okay, but being that this is a city core, the downtown. What about the residents of Santa Barbara? How are we reaching out to them? And,
So that's through the community open houses, so that would be.
but how do you notify them? I don't get notified of anything
So we have a number of, city has social media presence, both on Instagram and
Okay.
Facebook. We have a city news and brief that goes out to, I think it's like 24,000 email addresses, so you can sign up for that and get notification. We also send out, we have various project notification lists, and then we use that city news and brief email list to send out project-specific notices as well.
Well, thank you for that, because I'm not on the email list. And
Well, you can
I
go,
need to,
yes,
I guess
you
I
can go
need to
sign
get
up.
on it. Okay, as far as the housing element goes, is this included on the suitable site inventory? And I didn't see it when I looked it up.
Commissioner DeLucio, through the chair, it is not on the suitable site inventory.
So that's a good thing, because we have a big deficiency in the low and the mods. And also, the HLC minutes, I did not have an opportunity to look at those. What were the couple of key things that were different?
Commissioner DeLucio, through the chair, I do happen to have those printed in front of me. They made some changes to each of the 9 comments listed. I'm going to look to the secretary to help me with this, but I will make an attempt at highlighting the changes. It was identifying, being more specific about ensuring that there's equal dignity and character to the market rate buildings.
Points 4 and 7 through 9 were
the ones that were changed?
Yeah, the bigger focuses.
Okay. So the wording of point 4 was regarding the massing, size, and height of the building, and the comment was changed to emphasize that the commission understands the need for housing and revitalization of the area, but believes that more work is required. 5 is similar to 7 through 9. The commission, 7 says, the commission believes it is essential to incorporate a paseo around mid-block on Ortega to be consistent with the paseo program. It was a little bit softer language in the draft. 9, study integrating arcades and other public benefits, especially on primary streets. I believe the especially on primary streets was added. And 9 was maintain continued consideration for the flow of the public through the property.
Okay, I actually was trying to read it on my phone here. It's not that easy. And I did notice one other one had to do with the compatibility findings, and I think they made them a little stronger, saying.
Correct. That was number 4 regarding
Yeah.
the massing, size, and scale. So the draft minutes said it was a combination of there's massing, size, and scale concerns. We understand the need for housing. It didn't really emphasize the compatibility findings, so it was made a
Right.
little stronger to emphasize that
So
there's more work needed to make those
To
compatibility
get there,
findings.
yeah. Okay, thank you all very much. Those are my questions for now.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Barnwell.
I have several hundred questions that I'd like to ask. I'll start in Spanish. No, everybody's mentioned everything that was on my mind but I want to reemphasize. We have used this phrase, we're making decisions based on looking at the financial feasibility. And I want to put this in the lingo of my own personal profession. That means that somebody did a highest and best use analysis. And based upon the highest and best use analysis, which is usually 3 or 4 different pathways, they come up with this particular one, which apparently we don't have the financial feasibility analysis for this. Is that correct? We don't have a document that we can look at that'll tell us, for example, I'm tying now into what Ms. Saley said and my esteemed colleague, Mr. Balke, which is, are there other alternative uses of some other adjacent land immediately that we didn't look at?
We do have the financial pro forma. Staff and our financial consultants, Strategic Economics and the Maxima Group have reviewed it in depth, the complete pro forma. It is a privately proprietary document of AB. They have not indicated that they want to share it publicly, and so we have used our financial experts, outside financial experts, to review that document. So there is that financial feasibility study that has been done. It was done for the 500-unit project. It was done for the revised project as well.
And we feel as though we're agreeing with their conclusion as to what's financially feasible, and this is the best that we can do. Because that's what a highest and best use analysis does. It figures out the best that you can do.
I think given the constraints on the site and the constraints with the ground lease, the obsolescence of the Macy's building and not being able to use that for retail, I think the changing retail environment, those were all factors that were considered in. And strategic economics has helped us in that analysis with AB.
Well, I want to go a little bit deeper into the question of the retail space and how much retail space allocation there is, et cetera. That was also part of the financial analysis?
Yes, it was.
That's all I have, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I do have a few questions still, I apologize. So I'm trying to think about why are we giving away this land? And why are we giving it away to a private investment company? So I'm wondering, why don't we just give Lot 2 to the Housing Authority or give any other rights and transfer it to the Housing Authority? The Housing Authority could lease to AB or somebody else. Why are we choosing to give it to a private entity?
Because they are the partner that we are negotiating with. They own the improvements above the land. So that is just how we have been negotiating this deal. And I think on the Lot 2 site, as Mr. Henschke had mentioned earlier, there is discussion and consideration for actually transferring it directly to the Housing Authority, and so I think that's still part of the conversation. But at this point in the negotiations that we've been working on for 3 years, and the conversations we've had with the City Council, this is where we are at the point of the negotiations.
Okay, thank you. And I have a couple questions for the applicant. Yes. So I'm curious if what analysis did you do in terms of offering the sale of the property to the city or to the Housing Authority as opposed to the negotiations that you're in now?
So Commissioners, Vice Chair, thank you for having me here. I think what we looked at is two separate analyses, right? There's the analysis that looks at what the value of the property would be encumbered with the current ground leases, which would be, from our perspective, it'd be very hard to sell a property encumbered by the ground lease with only 40 years remaining. The other analysis that we did that's been those values that have been floating around, that was not our analysis, that was Strategic Economics and Maxima doing it independent of us, but the $32 to $39 million is the equivalent of what a unencumbered piece of land would sell for at a market rate.
So did you offer to sell your rights to the city or to give your rights to the city?
That I'm not sure.
I don't know that would have been within the city's financial wherewithal to purchase the ground lease from AB. So, and it was not offered to us, as far as I know.
Thank you. Another question for the applicant. I understand that AB has done this in other communities, so acquired property in lieu of foreclosure or acquired the deed. Can you tell us in recent years where you've turned other malls or shopping centers into housing or into projects like this?
So I actually work for the Georgetown company as part of the development team. As a practice of being a large lender, oftentimes when a borrower defaults, your next best option to recuperate your investor's investment through you is to take a deed in lieu, and that way you have the opportunity to sell the property or improve the property to recoup its value. AB, as a course of doing business as a lender, does this all the time, but I don't really have that information.
And we don't have a representative from AB here?
Just their attorney, and Graham, I don't think, has the information to be able to respond to that.
Okay. So it's an unknown. And then a few questions for the city, because I'm trying to confirm consistency with the AUD density standards. I saw on the applicant's presentation the unit mix for the affordable units, but do we have the unit mix for the market rate?
That was not included in the preliminary application materials.
Okay. And we don't have any sense of the market rate rental costs, do we?
We've seen it as part of their pro forma, and so it is consistent with market rate rents in other projects that are, recently constructed in the downtown area.
Okay, how recently? Just to give I'm trying to get a ballpark sense of what this is what market rate is.
I think the Solterra would be the best comparative.
Okay. So
Soltara, sorry.
7,000, okay. And then I'm curious, because there's some conversation about the breaking up of the Macy's building area, why wouldn't we have, if it wasn't one building, why wouldn't we have the affordable units right near the Macy's building? Why is it shoved over in an alley, basically? Why wouldn't we have the 80 units as part of this part of the site, understanding that it would need to be a separate building?
For tax credit purposes.
Yes.
I think it's mostly a density and height question, but I think the, architect might be able to respond to that, trying to fit another 80 units on that site.
I mean, as opposed to having all the 200-something market rate units, why not have 180 market rate units there and the other 80 units in the alley?
It's a financial feasibility. In looking at the reason they have proposed the 233 market rate units as a package is that is what generates the return that they're, doesn't even get them to the return they're looking for, but maximizes the return for the development of that site. If you included the affordable units, they would not be managing those, so they wouldn't be even collecting any rent or anything from those units. So they would lose rental value if you did less market rate units.
And just to be clear, the integration of units within the market rate units is not 80. It's 24. So the use of Lot 2 facilitates the provision of additional units above the 24. So that's why there's that option being presented. That was the one that was presented to council, and we received direction to proceed forward to negotiate a DDA that includes that option. The developer, AB, would have the ability to come in and say, okay, we're just going to do the market rate units on the Macy's site, and there's 24.
Affordable.
Or a
24
affordable, or a different potential configuration under the state density bonus law. But that's it's not 80, it's 24, or 80, up to 80 over there.
Okay, understood. So if the city was not offering to give away one of our parking lots for this proposed project, the developer would still have to include their 24
Correct.
affordable units on site.
Yeah, correct.
So I guess what I'm getting at is it's awfully nice of us to give away one of our parking lots for a potential of up to 80 units. So just a little concerned about whether or not the developer had the intention of actually including the affordable units. So I'm curious if they want to speak to that at all. No?
Through the Vice Chair, Graham Lyons, and I think as Mr. Henschke mentioned, the goal really for the project has been a collaboration with the city and trying to identify what the city would really like to see at Paseo Nuevo. And I think what we heard clearly from council and in our discussions with staff is that there's a desire to have significantly more affordable units than we would be required to under state law. So really, we are doing a lot of gymnastics to work through Lot 2. I think we can all agree that it's complicated. But in our conversations, and I think with AB, it's worth it if we're able to deliver significantly more units of affordable housing that way versus putting 24 units into the project, which we obviously, if that's what needs to happen, that's what we can do, and I think Mr. Henschke has mentioned that that's what would be required. Again, our goal has been trying to find ways that we can provide additional benefits for the project in the city, and including more affordable units. The only way that we can figure out financially to do that is to have a separate project that can be financed separately with different financing mechanisms, including low-income housing tax credits, using partners like the Housing Authority to make that happen. So that's really from our perspective, it is, we could do 24, we'd prefer to do 80. We're all collectively doing a lot of work to try and make that happen. But that's the reason why. And I know I appreciate all of the questions about Lot 2. It's like I said, it's complicated. It's complicated for us. It's complicated for the city. But in our minds, it's worth the effort to try and deliver significantly more units than we would be able to otherwise.
But you wouldn't be developing the actual 80 units. That would be, it sounds like that would potentially be the Housing Authority.
It could be in partnership with an affordable housing provider. I think, as Dan has mentioned, sorry, Mr. Henschke, we've been talking for 3 years about this now. I keep calling you Dan, I'm sorry. It would be the responsibility of AB to make sure that that is something that is delivered. So as Mr. Henschke mentioned, part of the transaction would be that we AB are required to have those units ready to be delivered through the financing, through the building permits to that point. So.
So and this might be for both parties, if the option of the gift of Lot 2 to this proposed project was not an option, the developer would just be producing the 24 units at the Macy's site.
Correct.
And the city could contribute the completely separate transaction, could gift Lot 2 to the Housing Authority.
Correct. We've done that with the Housing Authority on other projects, so
that would produce more than 80 affordable units.
There would have to be a conversation about how that gets funded, because in this situation, the demo of the garage is a significant expense, which is potentially contemplated as part of the transaction. And so I don't know that would be, the reason we're looking at Lot 2 is because of the density bonus considerations. And if I was going to choose another lot to work with the Housing Authority on, if it was just the city and the Housing Authority, it'd probably be something else. But because of the opportunity with this project, that's why we're looking at Lot 2.
Okay, thank you. I'm also curious, can we require the pro forma to be part of the DDA as an exhibit?
No.
No, okay. Worth asking. And then looking back at the city council meeting from August, there was a slide about the proposed city contributions earning long-term return on investment, and I didn't see exact values or costs associated with the land transfer tax rebate. Do we have those figures now?
There was a slide in the council. Let me try and see if we can pull it up, and I can read those.
Thank you. Then I'll move to a few other questions while you pull that up. So compared to the March 2024 proposal, we're losing losing housing units, but we're gaining retail, food, and beverage, which surprised me because I know there are many community or needs assessments that identify the need for more affordable housing, but I'm not aware of any community needs assessments that identify the need for additional retail or food and beverage.
There's not actually additional retail. It's actually a significant downsize from what's on the site currently. So when basically the original proposal had 0 square footage of retail, and so instead this is sort of like halfway between the what's on site now and I don't know if you have the numbers.
I do have the numbers. Vice Chair Boss, so currently the existing retail and food and beverage floor area is 240,000 square feet. And the proposal before you today is 125,000 square feet. So it is a significant reduction of about 115,000 square feet.
This is speaking to the retail?
Yes.
Okay. So is there a need for that retail? Or what tells us that there is a need for it?
Are you asking, is there a need for retail at all in Paseo Nuevo?
Yes.
It is the applicant's understanding that there is a demand for retail in that area. From a staff standpoint, it also is really in the city center and looking at when we're looking at revitalizing downtown and State Street and the streets immediately adjacent from Chapala to Anacapa, I mean, that it is both housing and the retail component.
My recollection is that there are a number of vacancies on State Street. So couldn't those retail needs be met right on State Street as opposed to part of this development?
I think there's, different configurations of those retail spaces. I think this is the way that I think they're envisioning redoing the retail spaces will actually be more beneficial. Some of the spaces on State Street are not necessary. The challenge with leasing some of them is the depth of those spaces on State Street for retail. So I think Paseo Nuevo, and I think as they're re-envisioning and as the architects discussed, was sort of positioning it so it's more successful and better for today's environment for retail. So it's not to say that other retail uses couldn't come into State Street spaces, but these would be specifically designed and reimagined for kind of retail environment as it's shaped today.
Okay. And then a question about parking, and this might be for the city or the applicant. It wasn't clear to me, so I understand that there are parking spaces dedicated to the market rate residential. How many parking spaces are dedicated to the affordable rental units? Or are there any?
Vice Chair Boss, the applicant's proposal is that the parking for the affordable units would be decoupled from the rent. So there would be rent not including the cost of a parking space, and the tenants could purchase monthly parking passes for parking in city lots, including Lot 2.
So the parking is included for the people who can afford it, but parking is not included for the people who can't afford it?
It's included in the rent, so the rent is higher to account for the parking space. But for the affordable units, part of the way to keep the rents more affordable is not to include the cost of parking in the rent.
Okay, so no parking spaces are dedicated to people in affordable housing?
Well, we have not, I mean, again, the details have not all been worked out, but that is something that could be considered. But again, parking is not required for housing in the downtown, so that's the other.
For market rate or for affordable?
Yes, correct.
But we're providing it for market rate, not affordable?
That is the choice of the developer to provide that and so, I mean, that's something that we can continue to discuss with the affordable housing provider, hopefully the housing authority, in the conversation with those affordable units.
Okay, thank you. And then I'm the downtown parking liaison, so I got to see this also this morning. And one question, they had some great questions and comments that I'll add later, but they didn't ask if downtown parking would continue to oversee part of Lot 2, would they?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And I have a response to your question. So it was in the staff
cost.
report from August 5th.
Okay.
So it says, once the city and AB work together to remove the property encumbrances, the total value of the city's financial contribution, the land value, and future tax revenues to the project could range from $32 million to $39 million.
But there isn't a breakdown. That's just a general figure?
Yeah.
Okay.
I would say the majority of that is the land value. The property tax revenue is pretty small, so it's, we only get like 13 or 14 cents of every dollar of property tax. So if this is proper, depending on what the assessment is, it's, several $100,000 a year of property tax.
Thank you. I thought we'd exhausted questions, and yet there are more. We'll go to Commissioner Wiscombe.
Thank you, Vice Chair Boss. I just have one follow-up question on the financial feasibility study by Maxima Strategic Economics. And that's in the financial feasibility study, my assumption is they did not consider a charter amendment for a 99-year lease for the property in lieu of a transfer of the land to AB. Is that correct?
Correct. That was not part of the conversation.
Thank you. That's my other question.
Commissioner Bauke.
I just have one follow-up question and just trying to get some clarity on the affordable housing. Is AB going to pay 100% of the cost of construction of the affordable housing, including debt and equity?
No, because they are not required to build the entire 80 units. So that's still under conversation of what their actual contribution will be and to preparing the site, the building permits, the plans, and sort of what the contribution will be. So that will be part of the DDA in December. But they're not technically required to pay the full cost of constructing the 80 units because that is not what they're required to provide.
Okay, I just could, because since this is a contract, clearly a contract, it's my experience that cities can ask for more than what is required under the law, under your negotiations here. And why wouldn't we be asking for them to be the one to basically create the affordable housing and just hand the keys off to the local housing authority when it's all done and complete?
Again, we've been in this negotiation in a balance to find project financial feasibility. And so that additional cost, in terms of looking at their pro forma and their numbers, I think would make the project infeasible from their perspective to have to actually build those units as well and just turn them over. So again, it's a negotiation back and forth. The contribution won't be nothing, but that is part of the negotiation, and we have to have all, if we want a project to happen, there's a give and take in the negotiations.
Okay, thank you.
And Commissioner Barnwell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is for the city attorney. I guess I'm not really clear on this. Who owns the bottom underlying fee of the ground?
The city.
Okay, the city. Does the city take any return on that? Is there any lease payment to the city?
No.
And under what we thought was going to be the plan, the Paseo Nuevo plan, at some point, if the lease did run out, then that would all revert to the city. It would come back to the city, both its use of the land and the buildings on top of it, right?
Correct.
Okay. Okay, thanks. I want to be sure everybody understands that the underlying fee is owned by the city and all these leases are on top of that. Okay, thank you, Madam Chair.
And we have Commissioner Wiscombe.
Sorry, I just have one more follow-up question. AB is not required to pay for all the affordable units, but they do want them banked, is what the documents say, or our staff report says. They want them banked for future use, but they don't have to pay for them? I'm really confused about that statement.
If there is a banking, yes, there would be a different conversation about contribution. Again, we're not, at this point, the banking is a future conversation, so that in a future negotiation, if we can figure out how to make that sort of program work, it would require, I think, separate policy action from the council. But I agree with you that if there were more units that they were trying to bank, there would need to be some contribution to that.
Okay, well, who came up with the 80 units? Didn't AB come up with the 80 units because they wanted to bank some? That's my understanding.
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
Okay. I'll leave it at that, but that's very confusing. They have a financial obligation if they're banking units for future use or even potential future use. Thank you.
Any final questions? Okay. I'm going to give us a 10-minute break to stretch and stand. So please come back at 3:57. right, thank you. We are returning. We're going to move into the deliberation period, and we'll be, after deliberations, making a motion on consensus comments regarding design, overall improvements, and consistency with the city's general plan, as well as the DDA terms and conditions for the development of the project, including overall height, number of units, number of affordable units, open space, project construction schedule and phasing, and the community benefits provided and public financial support. So we'll begin with the deliberation period with Commissioner Bauke.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to try to keep mine fairly short. I think my questioning sort of gave you some clarity as to where I'm coming from. Definitely concerned that shop off isn't part of these conversations, and we, holistically, yeah, it would be very, very advantageous to the city to have sort of a precise plan of some shape or form for the whole thing at one time, especially since we're not doing CEQA any longer on these kind of projects. The public's going to sort of think this whole thing's a giant game of piecemealing, so just want to put that out there. Clearly, as you understand from my comments and questions, I really have significant opposition to the idea of taking out $15 million of public infrastructure that probably will never get built again because the state's not requiring parking to be built for residential projects, and commercials, the viability of building a lot of parking other than public agencies doing it is very limited at this point in time. So those are my two biggest comments, and I definitely think the folks at AB should really seriously consider basically building the entire 80-unit project or in paying for it as part of the consideration for this project. And personally, I think an off-site location, a dedication of a piece of land to the affordable, to the housing authority would be a better way. And also there's a provision in the state density bonus law that allow you to use that instead of tearing down this piece of public infrastructure. So that's my commentary. Thank you, Madam Chair.
I think we'll move to Commissioner Wiscombe.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have grave concerns that no consideration in the financial feasibility was given to considering developing the project under a 99-year lease brought to the voters for a change in our charter exclusive to this property. I think that, and I do agree with Commissioner Bauke's comments, by the way. Just to go on, an anonymous letter stated that Paseo Nuevo began as a public-private development, and the public expects the city to retain the property and share in the revenue derived from it after the lease expiration. And I agree that we should consider a narrowly tailored charter amendment, just to cover all bases on the financial feasibility. The letter also states that AB is trying to make a return on a defaulted loan, and recovering private loss is not a public purpose. And finally, the letter discusses this is the anonymous letter we got. Finally, the letter discusses full financial transparency. So we should publish the pro forma or the financial feasibility study proposed before council action on the DDA economics. Consideration should be given to decreasing the height of the project. There's been a lot of pushback on that. And I'm saying consideration should be given. I agree with all the comments made by HLC in their revised minutes, including a public paseo around mid-block on Ortega. And that's really important. Our paseos are very important to us. So, and also treating the affordable housing with equal dignity and character in architecture as the market rate housing, which wasn't clear at all in HLC's presentation. It was just a placeholder. I'm concerned with the market rate housing being too upscale. Staff report states that the project is expected to serve as a catalyst for downtown Santa Barbara's revitalization by increasing property values, adding new residents, and strengthening support for local businesses. That said, the applicant has used phrases such as refreshed mix of retail shops and restaurants, and a specialty food market, and bring in world-class tenants for retail components. This, to me, is not supporting local businesses per our general plan policies, but rather giving the development an exclusivity that defies many of our general plan policies. I share concerns about the location of the affordable component, its proximity to the Canary Hotel, and perhaps limiting air and light. And I would prefer to see the affordable component integrated into the market rate development. I'd like to see the architecture reduced. We've already talked about that. If the affordable component does proceed as outlined, I thoroughly support the Housing Authority's letter with the recommendations that Lot 2 not be transferred to AB, but be transferred to the Housing Authority or whoever is developing the affordable housing. And since the local housing trust fund current balance is insufficient to develop the property, that AB or any market rate developer who uses this affordable development to meet their inclusionary requirement make a significant financial contribution per unit to the development, and also include the engineering, demolition, and retrofit costs. Mr. Fredericks had a figure in mind in his report. And finally, that the Housing Authority is the perfect partner for this endeavor and should be at the table from concept to final design through construction and ultimately for permanent management of this component in the project. With respect to the general plan policies outlined in the report, I am concerned about the project's support for local businesses, which I've already talked about given the comments about a high-end world-class development. I have concerns about the architecture meeting EPV design standards, but I'm confident that HLC will deal with that in a great manner, as they always do. And concerns about the project meeting the land use development LG 15 that encourages preservation and enhancement of a sense of place. I think that we need to broadcast on City News and other places. I know we get the City News Bulletin, that we list the Paseo Nuevo website and that we alert people to what's going on. And I think the financial feasibility study, since it didn't consider the charter amendment, that we should just revisit that and have a look at that to see where that puts us. My last comment is Alliance Bernstein is not required to pay for all the affordable units, but if they want them banked for future, if they do build more and they want them banked for future use, they need to pay for them. And those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner DeLuccio?
Thank you. Well, that's said a lot. I think that one of the contentions here is lot number 2, and I did view the Downtown Parking Committee meeting this morning. I won't say a lot about it, but they had some resistance on lot 2. They're concerned about giving up parking, and also the Housing Authority has concerns about lot 2, I believe, because how do you get 80 units in there? So I think that's something you guys need to bring them to the table, before this DA goes forward to the council, to come to some type of consensus on that. Typically, I prefer the affordable housing within a project. But in that case, we'd get 24 units. Here, I believe we can get up to 80 units by building it separately. And I think by the housing, if we do build it separately, I have a lot of confidence in the Housing Authority, because my concern when you build them separately, even when you, that it'd have the same quality, the units would have the same quality as the ones that are built in the market rate housing. So for that, and I know that from past projects, the Housing Corporation does a great job, and it will be a quality project, and it'll be, the units will also be of quality. Some other things here. I do think the Macy's, the structure that's there right now, be happy to see that go. It's just a box. I don't see a lot of articulation in that building. But I do get a little concerned when and the height doesn't bother me too much. I understand. I don't believe we have any say over the height. We've explored that, so we have to move forward with the height if it's going to be higher. But from going from 135,000 square feet to 330,000 square feet that's a lot of massing. That's a lot of.
Commissioner DeLuccio,
Yeah.
I apologize for interrupting, but I wanted to make a correction to that number.
Yeah.
I spoke with the applicant during the break, and it's 230,000 square feet. So I apologize. We had it
Okay.
100,000 square feet more, and that was incorrect.
That's a little better, but but still, it is quite a bit more than the 135,000. But I know the HLC is going to work with you on that to set it back and do articulations to make it more, to scale down all the massing and all that. The height would be the same. So I'll leave it to them. And I know the Paseos come up, and man, those Paseos are so great. I worked downtown for 18 years, and I would go in. You go through the Paseos, you come in the Canabedillo side, you can go out the State Street side, you can go out the Chapala side. I've always missed the Ortega side because when I go back to the office, I have to walk all the way around. I just can't cut back through. So I really love, let's do that Paseo. And also let's see what else I have anything else on my list here. I know that local preference has come up. I don't know if you're exploring that, the local preference portion of it. If not the whole project, all the units, but some of them to be more for people who are going to live here year-round. I know we touched on the banking, the cap on banking. Are you going to explore that further? And I guess my overall concern is that the affordable units, I know they'll get built, but my concern there is about, again, as has been articulated, about the financing of that. Who is ultimately going to pay for all of that? And I believe that we need to persuade the developer to pay for it at the end of the day, especially if they want to bank units. And then also, we also need to address the parking situation on the affordable units. I know on the on-site, there'll be parking provided, and the way that parking is being arranged now doesn't concern me too much because Macy's and Nordstrom's probably took up a lot of the retail parking. So when and I thank you, Tess, for doing the chart to show us how you're still getting 2 spaces for the retail. And so I think we don't need as much retail, obviously, as parking, because those retail structures have gone away. But the other side of the coin is now with AB 2097, as we build projects, we're losing parking. And where are people going to park? I know you mentioned putting preferential parking on the city streets, but that can get eaten up pretty quickly, and I know allow people to go into the lots and all that. But again, the concern, I know Commissioner Buckley, Ronwell will bring that up, and I know that my other commissioner, how are we in the future without having parking, where people are going to park? I know we're putting emphasis on bicycles and walking and all that, but we need to be realistic about it also. I think I'll stop there. I can go on and on.
All right, Commissioner Barnwell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to speak from my heart, and it may come back to bite me, but this sounds like we're desperate, and we're making a rush to judgment. And people are saying that this is 3 years in the making. Everything I've heard, I'm going to go way out on a limb here and say, I sat on the Planning Commission for 8 years and the council, and I don't ever remember such an ill-defined proposal coming in front of me. And I'm trying to make heads or tails of it, and I am quite shocked. If we take this on the road to the general public, we're going to run into a brick wall. You have some very sophisticated people up here who have brought very sophisticated questions, and they're not getting answered except by saying, we haven't worked out those details yet, or this is part of the financial analysis, which we haven't seen. So I'm deeply disturbed by the foundational material out of which this entire discussion has grown. I agree on the affordable housing issue of, I think affordable housing should be interspersed in amongst the market rate housing. I'm disturbed that we don't know what kind of market rate housing we're talking about. Are we talking about elegant stuff? Middle stuff? No idea. That's what I mean when I go into this, when I say, I don't know what's going on here. I'm really confused. And the questions that are being asked are not, to my satisfaction, being answered sufficiently. Insofar as the long-term, insofar as the gift of the ground, I have been a real estate appraiser for 50 years, and my dad was one, and my granddad was one, and I am familiar with over 20 governmental agencies, and whether they gave away the land or they long-term leased the land, and in every single case, when they gave it away, they ended up regretting it, deeply regretting it. But because over time, the value that you give something now turns out to be far more later on when you look back and go, oh my God, what did we do? The school district is a classic example. They got rid of several schools, Garfield and a few others, and now they wish they had them back. Goleta School District, on the other hand, long-term leased the land, so it would come back to it. I want to agree with my distinguished colleague, Ms. Wiscombe, who says maybe we should do a charter amendment that allows us to do 99 years, because I am flatly opposed under any circumstances to give them the land. And when someone says, well, it's part of the feasibility analysis that we receive the land for free, I say again, what feasibility analysis? I do know for a fact, sure and certain, that in construction, 1/3 of the cost of construction is the land. Now, this has demo associated with it, so it's not quite fair. But nevertheless, we're giving them a huge allocation. And other monies that come into the allocation that the city is giving or not giving are not clear, associated, for example, with the Lot 2. And I want to go back, as my distinguished colleague mentioned a moment ago, about how Mr. DeLucchio, I'm going to harp on this. We don't have a number for how many parking spaces there are in downtown. And here we are giving up spaces in a public lot, which could indeed be a treasure trove of the only parking we will have, and we seem to be just willy-nilly throwing it around. We don't know how many cars park at the curb. We don't know how many cars are in private lots. We are completely at sea when we have any kind of a conversation about parking. Overall, I would say that this doesn't sound like planning. This whole thing doesn't sound like planning to me. It sounds like, hey, by the way, here's something, and look at this. Just a second. How is this tying into other components of what we call the city? For example, the retail space that has been mentioned before. I'm not really sure we need more retail, but I don't even really know. I don't know the square footage. I don't know the square footage of what we have. I don't know the vacancy downtown. I don't know any of those discussions. And before we did Paseo Nuevo, which I was a part of as an appraiser associated with the eminent domain of that thing, we analyzed and looked at all of the details, all of them, down to the finest little piece of powder. I don't have a sense of that here. And when I see the council making their decisions, I wonder if they themselves are maybe afraid, or they want to, gosh, we got to fix this Macy's thing. We got to do something about this Macy's thing. I'm not sure this is it. I don't have a feeling that this is it. Insofar as the architecture, I trust the HLC. The paseos are hugely important. The paseos on the east side of Santa Barbara will take you all the way from Renaud's coffee shop, practically all the way down to Haley by just going through and in between all of those buildings. We need to do more of that. And the Ortega Street, clearly that needs a paseo. By the way, I would like to remind the architect The street that you are on, one of the streets you're on is called West Ortega. It's called West Ortega because in Santa Barbara, going in that direction off of State Street, we call that west. You have not recognized that in your drawings and in your elevations. For example, on the Ortega Street elevation, you refer to it as the east elevation. That's not the east elevation in Santa Barbara talk. That is the south elevation, because south is toward the ocean and north is in that direction. And all of your elevations have those terms incorrect insofar as how we deal with it, even including the names of our streets. So I would suggest maybe you might want to tweak that a little bit. I'm surprised people at the HLC didn't say something to you about it. Excuse me just one second. The unit size. We don't know what the unit sizes are. The affordable units, we don't have anything on that. That's the kind of stuff that comes to us, and we decide, we make decisions, we make judgments, because we're a planning body. I don't have any sense of us planning right here, right now. We're responding to things that have been thrown at us rather than planning, and it's deeply disturbing to me. That whole affordable stuff, I love the fact we get 80 units, but I'm questioning how do those 80 units come to us? What are we banking? Why aren't they incorporated into the market units? I just don't think these details have been ironed out. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Back to Commissioner Bauke.
Madam Chair, I just had two things. One, in my haste to get this thing started, I did not talk about my feelings about what the HLC's revised comments are, and I completely support every single one of those statements. And I think, as I think the public needs to know, is this body, unless in the negotiations of this DDA, the council places us back in the loop of this review process, this is the last time this body's going to see it. So I just want to make sure, and maybe the council will find it a good idea to use this as a buffer, because my concern is the public really doesn't understand this project. The workshops that are, are coming, are weeks after we hear this, and they're not necessarily town halls, and we used to have town hall meetings and things like this, which really gets the public engaged. And the meet and greet stuff like that was done for the stuff at La Cumbre, which I think probably what the city's talking about, doesn't seem to be the same kind of it doesn't provide the same amount of notification to the public, and this is so important. So anyway, sorry for the diversion, but I do want to support both my fellow commissioners' comments, because I completely agree with all the comments said. Thank you.
Yes, Commissioner.
Thank you. I want to totally support Commissioner Barnwell's comments. I feel the same way. I feel a little bit lost up here, and we're just out of our lane in responding to something that is really, really squishy at this point.
Right. My personal comments, just really on three subjects. I am concerned this is a gift of a public asset in Lot 2, and we've made an investment in this structure that has been serving downtown. So giving it away is really concerning to me, just really concerning to me. As far as public outreach goes, I'm on all the lists and connected with all the social media, and I learned about the public outreach, the open house to be held next week, by reading our staff report. And 2 days after reading the staff report, I got an email from the city that there was going to be an open house next week. So I'm connected, and I feel like I should have known about it before reading the staff report to the Planning Commission. So that concerned me that if I didn't know, I feel like a lot of other people didn't know either. And in the August meeting, the August City Council meeting, all of the council members expressed a need for public outreach. And Councilmember Santa Maria in particular noted that outreach is not just to inform the public, but to take their feedback and incorporate it into project development. And I'm concerned that there won't be time for that if you're going to council December 2nd. So hoping that that might be extended to allow for real public outreach and engagement and incorporating their feedback. And third, I'm concerned about the segregation and lack of dignity for affordable housing. The affordable housing is proposed to be over an alley next to a parking lot. That is not dignified. And that comment also came from the Downtown Parking Committee just this morning. There isn't access to the amenities. That was a request that came during the Housing Authority Commission meeting. So I'm really concerned about the lack of dignity and care put into the affordable housing component of this project. So those are my comments. I can move forward and try to summarize all of the comments that we've heard, if that's okay. So a couple of likes that I heard were the placemaking, that there's housing downtown, and an appreciation for the approach as a collection of buildings. A few requests that I heard were to consider bringing a complete project proposal with the Nordstrom site to avoid disruption in future construction, a request to connect the Paseos, a request for FAR analysis, a landscaping plan and open space or open yard, understanding that that will be developed for HLC review, considering a charter amendment going to the voters, financial feasibility or pro forma, something that we can actually see and work with. There's a general agreement with the comments from HLC, a request to treat affordable housing with the same dignity of market rate units, including access to amenities offered to the market rate units, reconsider the implied upscale or exclusive retail, a request to transfer lot 2 and to directly to an affordable housing developer, whether it's the Housing Authority or another affordable housing developer. Include the Housing Authority in negotiations. A request for a planning commission to review the DDA. A request for more articulation. Adding a condition to incorporate local preference and occupancy into the DDA. And add a condition that the project or the property can't be sold until the project is complete and the city is approved of the transferee and timing of the transfer to or ownership by the affordable housing developer. Concerns, feels like we're rushing an ill-defined proposal. There's a perceived gift of public funds contributing public land and asset to an investment company. Concern about the height, although the state density bonus supersedes charter height. Request to bank units. CEQA, limited environmental review, must happen before transfer, but still a concern. We're making decisions based on financial feasibility, but we don't have that information, so it should be made public. Concern about the parking for market rate, but not for affordable when neither is required. It appears that we're helping an investment company recover a loss, and that's not a public purpose. The location of the affordable housing units. Concern or question about meeting EPV standards, which could be addressed by HLC. There was a request to correct the parking figures when this is presented to City Council. And a note that a goal is to provide more housing downtown, but if parking isn't included, we're relying on existing parking lots, and we'll need to look years ahead for projected parking needs. And my final category, missing or unable to determine. The draft DDA terms and conditions for development of this project, we don't have even those draft terms and conditions. We need accuracy in the elevation projections. A question about a need for retail space. A note that we don't have the information necessary to confirm consistency with AUD density standards. Need the unit mix and unit size. Question about transferring, especially Lot 2 to AB or to the affordable housing developer. Presumably, this would be in the DDA. All parties, AB, City, Shop-Off, must agree to the DDA at Macy's and at Nordstrom, but Shop-Off has not yet agreed, understanding this is a condition prior to close. There's a parking dedication to various parties, affordable housing, residential, market store, public, et cetera, but still unclear in that mix. We don't have the current value of the Lot 2 portion to be downtown. There are long-term parking needs. There's a request for building staff or structural engineers to analyze the build type, a need for analysis of state density bonus requiring inclusionary units in a contiguous manner, need for assurances that affordable units will be built concurrent to the market rate, which this can and should be a condition prior to the closing of the land transfer. A question about what happens to the theater or art museum if all of Paseo Nuevo is developed, and that should be a request or a requirement in the DDA. Public and stakeholder interested party outreach efforts need to be improved. The AB contribution to the affordable housing development should be equivalent to at least the 24 units to build, including demo, or to cover all if they're wishing to bank. And a note or request to not rush into this deal without the community's full scrutiny and all of these questions to be answered. Just a note that it's way too important. What did I miss? I have Commissioner Bauke first.
I just want to make sure, and I think I got it, is that there's a comment that shop-off needs to be part of this deal. Okay, I just wanted
Yes.
to, and the other one was the question about destroying, approximately $15+ million of parking infrastructure. I think those two, I think that they're in there, but I just want to make sure that.
There's a question about the current value of Lot 2 portion to be torn down.
It's just the idea of destroying it is really concerning. And, I think Commissioner Wiscombe might have something else to add, but if you need somebody to convert that all to a motion, I would make that my motion.
Thank you. And I'm going to go to the city attorney first.
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Chair, members of the commission. The list of the comments that you've made goes well beyond the Planning Commission's authorized jurisdiction on a project of this nature. And if I just wanted to read from the code, the Planning Commission shall provide comment and recommendation by majority vote regarding the proposed design and improvement of the project and the project's consistency with the general plan. The Planning Commission's comments and recommendations are intended for use by the applicable design body in their deliberations. So there are a lot of things that you said that can certainly be included in the minutes. And of course, those will be transmitted to the city council. But the Planning Commission's jurisdiction does not extend to the economic aspects of the transaction and some of those other kinds of things. It's limited in this context. I understand that you wish it would be otherwise, but it's not. And so in making the motion, I would request that you include in the formal motion only those matters that go directly to the design and improvement of the project and the project's consistency with the general plan. If you determine that you cannot make a recommendation because you don't have sufficient information, you can make that statement and recommendation. But including all of those things in a motion, in my opinion, goes beyond the authorization that the Planning Commission has.
Thank you. Commissioner Wiscombe?
Thank you. Mr. Henschke, I appreciate your thoughts on this, but my feeling, having sat up here for 9 years, is that the economics of this were discussed in the staff report and the council agenda report. If the economics are discussed and the financial feasibility study is discussed, the pro forma was mentioned. Ms. McAdoo mentioned the pro forma at the HLC meeting in terms of of AB being completely open with it. My feeling is that we have every right to discuss and to comment and to include in our motion what is in the staff report, and we are not straying out of our lane. If it's in the agenda and in the staff report, it's open game for commenting. That's my feeling on that. And I'd like to make one other comment, and it does involve the finances. that we put in that we are concerned that the financial feasibility study by Maxima and Strategic Economics did not consider a charter amendment for a 99-year lease in lieu of the transfer of the land to AB.
Noted.
And I would also second our motion.
I'll go to, okay, I'll go to Commissioner DeLuccio.
Overall, I agree with everything here, this motion. I don't understand enough about the charter amendment. I'm not going to vote no, but I do want to throw that out about, I understand that the charter says, our charter says 50-year leases, but I don't know if I'm amenable to go to the voters to vote for 99 years. It's just my opinion, but I'm not going to vote no on this.
I think the request was that it be considered or studied.
Studied, okay, if it's studied, but again, I need studying to convince me of that, so that's fine. The other thing is, right now what's going on in the city, obviously we need housing. It's all about affordable housing and workforce housing, but I guess my little frustration since I've been on this commission is, what about, we also need to think of the businesses. We also need to think of the retail sales, generating more, increase the sales tax revenues to the city. And a way of doing, and this, I believe, if this project is done right, correctly, yes, you're going to refigure the buildings that are still going to be there in the mall in order for them to have, stores that will generate more business by bringing more traffic downtown. I just want to throw that out. That's a positive that I know we're saying all this stuff in here, but let's say a couple positive things too. And staff has done a lot of work on this, and I want to, commend you for that. And as far as having an anchor store on State Street, that'll attract people down there too. I don't want it to be a Ralph's type store. I can go over to Ralph's downtown. If you're going to put something there, some kind of specialty store, some kind of gourmet health the type of store, supermarket type of store, that will bring more people downtown too. And I think it's something we're missing in this town. So I just want to throw those couple of things out.
Okay. Commissioner Bauke.
Call the question, please.
Okay, and I think, did you make the motion?
Yeah, I made the motion.
Okay, you made the motion, and Commissioner Wiscombe made a second. We've deliberated further on it. So, Ms. Carmen, can we please have a roll call vote?
Thank you, Vice Chair Boss. I will begin with Commissioner DeLuccio.
Yes.
Commissioner Barnwell.
Yes.
Commissioner Wiscombe.
Yes.
Commissioner Bauke.
Yes.
And Vice Chair Boss.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't believe there is an appeal period, as this is a concept review, correct? Thank you. All right, we'll move on to note that item 5 is postponed to October 16th of 2025. And we'll move to the administrative portion of our agenda. Do we have any committee and liaison reports, starting with the staff hearing officer?
I think I'll save mine for next week.
Okay. And any other committee or liaison reports? Okay. Thank you. It is now 4:35 p.m. That concludes our October 9th Planning Commission hearing. Just gratitude to the applicant team and staff. I apologize I didn't mention that earlier, but thank you for your time and really thoughtful responses to our questions and concerns. Our next meeting is tentatively scheduled for Thursday, October 16th, and thank you all for being here. Have a great day.